the best single malt Scotch or Japanese. My jaw drops as Johnny tells me of a bottle of single malt Scotch which sold for $2.7 million. The situation for Irish whiskey was even worse than I'd thought. In fact, the whole industry had nearly gone extinct. This is where my buried treasure comes in. Ireland was once the world's largest whiskey exporter, and the largest of those brands was Dunville's. The company's secret was in volume, not value. They distilled whiskey from their Belfast base for Australia, America, Canada, India and beyond. In bars across the former British Empire, it was grand, ornate Dunville's mirrors you'd see behind the bar. By the start of the 20th century, Irish distillers controlled about 70% of the world whiskey market. It was the Dunvilles and their associated brands that were doing most of that selling, but their fortunes mirrored that of the global whiskey industry and fell. Hence the rumours in my town about the priceless whiskey buried in tunnels under the ruins of their palatial mansion. This was in part because the world of whiskey changed after the partition of Ireland, Prohibition in America, and the Second World War. In the Republic of Ireland, the distillers were cut off from the huge markets of the empire. In Northern Ireland, Belfast exports were still huge, but they got a reputation for being lower quality than Scotch, which was growing in popularity. Today, however, it's Dublin that has the reputation as the home of whiskey in Ireland, and it's beginning to make a comeback. Despite the industry's meteoric fall to just 4 distilleries in 2010, there are now over 40 distilleries on the island of Ireland. Irish producers now hope to get back in bars and pubs around the world. By volume, India consumes the most whiskey, and the US is the most discerning market as the biggest by value. I had a drink with my neighbour Viddy, a proud Mumbaiker and whiskey drinker. Growing up, we all drank whiskey. Guys and girls, young and old, at home or in clubs, she tells me. Whiskey is a much bigger part of life in India than the UK. It'll take up most of the drinks menu. But what kind of whiskey Indians are drinking is also changing. It's only in the last few years I've seen good Irish whiskey for sale, she goes on. Brands we had never seen before are starting to make an appearance. It was always blended Indian or single malt Scotch before. Viddy gives me a wide smile as she remembers her favourite dive bar in Bandra, the hipster district of Mumbai where she's from. This place is simple, a working class crowd mixing with people in media and creative industries, but at these bars you drink in quarts, even whiskey. She laughs as my eyes widen. Those quarts were full of local blended whiskies and the Irish staple Jameson. But times are changing, and the Irish have another obstacle to reclaiming world dominance. Now we see these really great upmarket brands coming from Uttar Pradesh, the Himalayan region, Viddy says. Even the desert region of Rajasthan is distilling its own. Now the high-end single malt Indian whiskies are the real status symbols, Viddy explains. For me, the 2 biggest drinks in India are whiskey and gin, she says, both of which we now make great Indian versions of. Ironic, eh? The 2 drinks the British brought over to us, and now we've taken them for ourselves.
That was Jordan Dunbar with our last story for this week. I'm Pascal Harter. The producer was Polly Hope. And we'll be back next weekend here on the BBC World Service.
That was the BBC programme from our own correspondent.
Good Monday morning, everyone. Hello, Manitoba. Good morning, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at Information Radio, and you're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. 3 minutes to 6, and Information Radio is your morning show. We're on air till 8:37 AM. Let's say good morning to the team today. Abby Adeyemi, our senior tech behind the controls. Hey, Abby. Abby will cover weather on the air very soon. Good morning, Darren Marash. Darren is our producer of our YouTube stream. Say hello to him there and watch the show if you want to see the show. And Sierra Sanders is in for Corey Funk today. Hi, Sierra. Sierra's directing the show and will be on air covering your commute. Heather Wells is starting headlines with news about our commute this morning. We're kind of ending, the way we ended Friday is how we're starting Monday. The weather's affecting things out there. Heather, what's up?
Good morning. Yes, it was kind of that sort of weekend, in fact. Cold warnings, though, are the most recent thing we can tell you about what the weather's doing to us this January morning, even as a couple of highways are still closed because of blowing snow, reducing visibility. Wind chill values values in southern Manitoba will be colder than -40, feeling like -45, though, in parts of the north. And while many highways were shut down yesterday, most have reopened except for two. Highway 23 from Low Farm to Highway 75 and Highway 75 from 14 to the U.S. border are both still closed. So we'll hear more about that through the morning. As well, Manitoba RCMP are investigating after a 7-year-old girl was coerced to send nude images to a man on Snapchat. Search warrant documents say the mother found those new photos and video on a Snapchat account the girl was using. We're going to hear from the Centre for Child Protection coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
The I-Team will also be in this on the show this morning to walk us through some more details of that case as we know them right now. Current temperatures out there, -24 in Winnipeg right now, and that is not the cold spot. -29 is up in Gillam. In Brandon, you have a cloudy start and -24 as well. And in Thompson, currently, you're starting mainly clear and also -24. Winnipeg, by the way, in case you're curious, today will go to -19 with lots of sun. But as we mentioned, it's just a cold one that continues across the province. Well, in the first hour of the show, the Manitoba Museum is taking a step to becoming more accessible. We'll tell you what they've added to try and help people get through exhibits. Also, we'll hear about more about Friday's announcement about the China-Canada deal on EVs and canola. So what does that look like this Monday morning? Stay with us.
On cue.
I'm Talia Schlanger in for Tom Power. Nat and Alex Wolf got really famous when they were just kids with the Naked Brothers Band. They'll tell you how they survived fame and remained friends and collaborators, and why on their new record, they're trying to recapture the musical freedom they had when they were young.
Q this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Britain's Prime Minister is urging calm discussions of U.S. threats to take over Greenland. Keir Starmer says the UK is determined to keep its strong relationship with the United States, but he says U.S. President Donald Trump's approach to protecting the Arctic is wrong.
That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong. It is not the right way to resolve differences within an alliance. Nor is it helpful to frame efforts to strengthen Greenland's security as a justification for economic pressure.
Starmer says his priority is to avoid a trade war with the U.S. Donald Trump has threatened to impose a 10% levy on goods from 8 European nations, including the UK. We're learning more about Trump's plans for the Middle East and what he calls the Board of Peace. Some countries, including Canada, have been invited to join the board. They could join in overseeing the next steps for Gaza, but participation is expensive. For more, let's go to Nick Harper in Washington. Nick, the official member list still is not out. What do we know about how this board is being formed?
Well, Marcia, we're hearing that more than 60 countries have been invited, including Canada, the UK, Germany, Russia, India, Pakistan. The members would get a 3-year term free of charge, or if they pay $1 billion, they'd get permanent membership. We're also hearing that the US wants a broader remit for the board, essentially starting off with Gaza, but then expanding the scope to other conflicts as well. So far, only 2 countries have accepted their invitations, Hungary and Vietnam. The other countries are still considering, and many of them, it seems, remain cautious, perhaps even wary. Here's the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer speaking about it a little earlier.
Look, we're supportive of the measures that are being taken across the Middle East, particularly the ceasefire. I do think we need to press on to phase 2. We're talking to allies about the terms of the Board of Peace.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has been asked to join. What is he saying?
That's right. The Prime Minister is saying that he has agreed to the idea in principle. He says that he and President Trump spoke about it a few weeks ago. The Prime Minister says he wants to help, in particular to relieve the suffering in Gaza. But he has said that unrestricted aid flows into the enclave are going to be a precondition of Canada taking part. And the Prime Minister has also made it clear the details are still being worked out.
We haven't gone through all the details of the structure, how it's going to work, what financing is for, et cetera. And so we will work through those in the coming days.
And one question remains for world leaders. Where does the United Nations fit into all of this? Because if the Board of Peace is looking at other conflicts, not just Gaza, will that undermine the work of the UN?
Thank you so much, Nick.
You're welcome.
Nick Harper reporting from Washington. At least 39 people have been killed in a high-speed train collision in Spain. Nearly 160 others are injured. The crash happened overnight. A train from Malaga to Madrid derailed and hit an oncoming train. This passenger says she could see some people were hurt really, really badly. Others had to smash windows and climb out of them to escape. Spain's transport minister says it is unusual. This incident happened on a flat, recently renovated track. A sexual assault survivor is demanding accountability from the Ontario Police College. She spoke to officers in a training course. She says they left disparaging comments. As Angelina King reports, there are questions about where those officers are working and whether they investigate sexual assaults.
I felt dismissed. I felt judged.
CBC News isn't identifying her because she's a victim of sexual assault. For years, she'd been sharing her story with police officers training to become sexual assault investigators through the Ontario Police College in hopes of improving the system for other survivors. But now she says she's humiliated after feedback comments left in course evaluations. One officer called her damaged and wrote she hasn't taken initiative to improve herself. Another said she should see a psychologist.
It's like those officers missed the whole point of the talk. They missed the part of not making judgments, of not carrying their bias into the situation.
In August, she raised concerns with the college. The director said he'd look into it, but didn't follow up.
It's really disheartening.
Sunny Mariner is an expert on sexual assault survivors' experiences when they access the Canadian justice system. She says if those officers are working on those types of cases, that's a problem.
A lot of the stereotypes that we saw in the comments, those are sometimes root causes of why investigations go sideways.
Ontario's Ministry of the Solicitor General oversees the college and didn't answer questions about whether the officers are investigating sexual assaults. It said it would follow up with the survivor directly. But she says the damage is done. She no longer feels comfortable sharing her story with the college. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
A St. John's emergency doctor says new urgent care centres are not reducing wait times. Newfoundland and Labrador's government is hoping to bring some relief to hospital emergency departments. But as Mark Quinn reports, some say the problem is not the number of people showing up at ERs, but overcrowding inside the hospitals.
Health officials have been saying repeatedly that new urgent care centres will reduce wait times in emergency departments in Newfoundland and Labrador. It's something they've been saying since former Health Minister Tom Osborne spoke about them in 2024.
It will allow emergency rooms to focus on emergency care and the urgent care centres to focus on urgent care, moving people through the emergency department more expeditiously.
But St. John's emergency doctor Scott Wilson says that notion is flawed. He says the problem is overcrowding inside the hospital, a shortage of beds available for new patients, not patients looking for urgent care.
Overcrowding inside the emergency departments, patients who are admitted to hospital but remain in our space. That is the number 1, 2, and 3 reasons why people wait 10, 12, 24-hour waits in emergency rooms.
Wilson, a member of the Canadian Association of Emergency Physicians, is calling on authorities to work with the group to find solutions.
We've already had unfortunately, lots of cases in the media across the country of patients dying in waiting rooms in emergency departments. The numbers game is eventually going to catch up to us.
Newfoundland and Labrador's health authority didn't respond to CBC's requests for comment. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
People in the U.S. are marking the 40th year of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom is continuing the tradition of free entry to national parks on this federal holiday, despite U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to end that.
MLK Day now been shifted to Trump Day. Again, what more evidence do we need on what the hell is going on in the United States of America? MLK Day in California, we are announcing today we're making 200 parks in California free on MLK Day.
Trump announced last year his plan to stop free entry into national parks on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Juneteenth, and National Public Lands Day in 2026. The administration replaced them with past presidents' birthdays and Flag Day, Trump's own birthday. People with service dogs say they are still getting a rough ride when it comes to ride-sharing apps. Uber users say they're often being left at the curb. As Sophia Harris explains, that is despite anti-discrimination laws and a push to educate drivers.
Oh, there you go. It's not my dog. And it drove off.
Video shot by Salome Solomon last month in Ottawa shows a waiting Uber driver take off when the legally blind woman and her guide dog Zurich approach the car. Solomon says this happens a lot because Uber drivers frequently refuse to let Zurich in their car.
You don't want to take me in? Yep. Okay, I'm going to send this video to Uber. Okay. Every rejection breaks you down. For me, it basically hits deep, like it's like a dagger to my heart.
In Canada, people with disabilities have a legal right to travel with a service animal. But several who rely on service dogs told CBC's Go Public some Uber drivers still refuse them.
Imagine the indignity of being told that your needs are not valid.
Disability advocate Jeff Preston says inaccessible transport is a systemic problem in Canada, and Uber needs to do better.
We need people to be driving who are open and understanding of their obligations.
Uber spokesperson Keith Narang says the company is working hard to combat the problem, but she acknowledges it still exists.
It's humiliating, it's painful, and it's completely unacceptable. The only acceptable ride refusal number is 0.
She encourages those left at the curb to notify Uber so they can weed out drivers who disobey the law. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
Cat, come here.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime. CBCnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, it was a challenging weekend weather-wise in Manitoba, and this morning that continues. We just got our first list of a couple of school divisions being closed. We'll update your weather and highway conditions in a moment. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio for your Monday, January 19th on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. This hour on the show, how about going indoors and enjoying something? We just had a story about inaccessibility. The Manitoba Museum is taking a major step to become more accessible. We're going to hear about a brand new app they developed to help people who are blind or have low vision, so stay tuned for that. In addition, this hour on the show, an economist's take on the Prime Minister's new trade deal with China came out Friday. We've had mixed reaction politically through the weekend, so stay tuned for some analysis. And then coming up at 10 to 7, changes to interprovincial trade will be coming this year. How could that affect Canada's economy, and how is Manitoba poised to benefit? That's all still ahead. Right now, let's go to news headlines. Heather Wells is in with those right now. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, paralyzed by cold, wind, and snow, at least a dozen highways were shut down yesterday in hazardous conditions. This morning, all have reopened except for 2, and those 2 are, we've got Highway 23 from Low Farm to Highway 75, 75 from 14 to the U.S. border. Now, it is so cold that even though the wind is backed off, that little bit of a breeze creates dangerous wind chills. Much of southern Manitoba and parts of the north are under cold warnings as we get going this morning. And scrambling for gold. Winnipeggers are lining up to buy and sell as gold prices keep on climbing. We're going to hear from a local jewelry business who says it's been challenging. Those stories and more in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, Heather just mentioned the challenge conditions, so let's go straight to the school divisions that are closed. Evergreen School Division has closed all schools today, and all schools are also closed in the Lord Selkirk School Division. So Evergreen and Lord Selkirk, just those 2 so far. In the actual weather forecast, Abby Adeyemi is in. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. The province is actually waking up to widespread cold warning across border this morning. We're talking about yellow level warnings as those brutal Arctic air mass grips the entire province. We're talking about this will be bringing wind chills from the values of -40 to -45, which means frostbites in minutes. And it's just more going to be frigid with this Irish morning and bone-chilling cold in the northern part of the province. And we'll see the chill also really spreading across most of the regions down south this morning. For Winnipeg right now, we're looking at temperatures around -23. The airport is tracking -27s, -26, partly cloudy there. Morning temperature is going to be hovering between -28 and -22 for Winnipeg. Expect some sunshine today. We're going to see the winds come from the northwest. It gets gusty at some point. We then see a high around -19. We won't really be feeling that warm condition because of the wind chill this morning, which feels like -41 in the city. So if you're making transition from one bus to another, or you're just trying to unplug your car, be prepared. You might feel that chill this morning. And across the southern regions, we're seeing most regions start around -29 in Gimli, for example, and -24 in Brandon this morning. Most of the regions warms up to -19, but the wind chill close to -41. Up north, we're seeing Thompson around -26, 27 already, and most regions will stay around that temperature up north. So it's going to be really chilly start, and the wind chill -40 or -45. It depends on where it catches you.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
You said it with the plug in the car or trying to unplug the car. I got up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. like for 20 years before we got a garage like that. I put my car in, which is very exciting. So I'm spoiled now. But the worst was always when you couldn't do it with your mitts.
It happened to me this morning. I had to take off my gloves, and then the plug was like frozen into the so I'm like, Yeah. So you prepare for that this morning. It's going to happen.
It's like someone slapped you in the face. Yeah. Like, really, it's not enough that it's just this cold. All right, let's get into what's actually happening. Just to reiterate the highway closures and add anything, here's Sierra Sanders. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Quite a busy morning on the commuter line already. Got a couple of calls. We'll start with Mandeep. He called about a stalled truck on southbound Kenniston just before the lights at Tuxedo there. So, and that's in the curb lane. So a stalled truck on southbound Kenniston just as you're approaching the Tuxedo lights there in the curb lane. As well, got a call. Kenniston at Grant, the lights are down. A light standard was knocked down. Crews were on scene, and this was kind of in the median there. It wasn't very backed up quite yet, as it is a little bit early in the morning commute so far, but that could get backed up depending how long it takes crews to get that standard back up and running. As well, got a call from Zach. Lights are out at Nairn and Kent, and they're not just flashing, they're actually completely out. So completely no flashing, no nothing. So you want to make sure you are approaching that with caution there. He mentioned that it looked like crews were getting on scene, but hadn't really started that work yet. So lights out at Nairn and Kent, not flashing. They are completely out. So be careful in that area. We heard Heather mention a couple of highway closures there. And just in case you're tuning in right now, I'll say them again. Highway 23 from Low Farm to Highway 75 and Highway 75 from Highway 14 to the U.S. border. Those highways are still closed after we had a couple of closures yesterday. I know some folks got stuck here in Winnipeg a little bit longer than they were planning to. And Manitoba 511 is reporting many highways around Winnipeg as partly covered, some even with reduced visibility. And that's just a reminder to folks out there, if you're heading out on the highways today, check Manitoba 511 for current conditions and any closures. I think that's all I have right now, but if there's something else that has popped up on your drive or you have any updates on these situations, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, the Manitoba Museum is making its galleries and its exhibits more accessible for visitors who are blind or have vision problems. It now offers a new visual interpreting app when you visit. The app is called Ira Explorer. It connects people with the sound of professional visual interpreters, and the goal is to let them explore the museum more independently. Rhiannon Lear-Blatcher is Director of Marketing, Sales, and Visitor Experience over at our Manitoba Museum. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us. So how does Era Explorer work? What's the experience people would hear?
So the Ira Explorer, it's an app that you can download for free. And because we have it within the museum and we've paid to have that, anybody can download it. And when you have it on your phone or your iPad or whatever you use, you press the app and like 24/7, a live interpreter will pop up. And basically, you turn your phone towards whatever you'd like to see, and they walk you through the experience. So they will walk you around the halls to ensure you don't run into anything. And most importantly, in our museum, they will describe the exhibits and describe what you're seeing there. So for someone who maybe would never have selected to go to the museum because they're blind or have low vision, this interpreter will allow them to have the experience and to learn about Manitoba's history. So it's really excellent. It really provides an opportunity that normally wouldn't have been there.
Now, do you need to have a smartphone for this to work?
Yes, you would have a smartphone, so it can be downloaded through that. But yes, you would require that to make that work.
Got it. Tell me a little bit more about how excited you guys are to offer this at the museum.
Well, for us, it's really part of our commitment to welcoming more and more of the community into the museum. So we want to remove any barrier that may exist that would prevent someone from coming and experiencing the museum. And we have a huge commitment to accessibility. So thankfully, I mean, this is one of the initiatives that we're doing related to accessibility improvements. And, we received a grant from the provincial government to do that. So, that includes people with mobility issues, with hearing issues. So for us, it's about welcoming more people in to experience Manitoba's history through this.
And Canadian Museum for Human Rights uses Ira, so people might be familiar with it if they've used it there as well. You guys did a soft launch, though, at the Manitoba Museum in December. What kind of feedback did you get?
Well, it was great. We brought in a number of different community testers. We worked with an organization to help us identify that. They came in and they tested it through the museum. And so we were able to get their feedback, learn about where some of our wayfinding issues were, but also the fact that they were all so happy to be able to come to the museum and experience it and learn through this. I was able, and a number of us were able to sort of observe some of the testers using the app while they were there and to overhear some of the feedback or some of even just the comments they were making, like, wow, that's so interesting. And, afterwards when they connected with us too to talk about the feeling of independence that they had and the autonomy they felt there without having to bring another person with them potentially. So it was really great to get that feedback and to know that this was something that could really make a difference.
What's next for you in terms of expanding or building on that kind of accessibility and technology in the future?
Well, we're almost complete with updating some of our accessibility components on our website to make it much more user-friendly that way. We've recently completed some videos in the museum that you can scan with a QR code that takes you on an experience through areas that are hard for people with mobility issues to access. So, for instance, the stairs up in the 1920 gallery or right onto the non-such. So we have our curators actually on there describing the experience with a video. So for someone that maybe normally wouldn't be able to get their wheelchair onto the non-such, they can experience it and actually have a really great experience as our curator describes what's on there.
Is there a hope that you could maybe get people up there? Like that would obviously be more money and infrastructure dollars, but is it something the museum would eye?
Oh, absolutely. Like we're trying to improve all the areas, that represent mobility issues. For some of them, yes, it is a financial aspect. And, we do actually use some of that to, in some of our signage to say that, unfortunately, this area is not accessible as it wouldn't have been when it was built in the 1920s or representing the 1920s. So, but some of it, of course, we would love everybody to be able to access it. So we're constantly working on that. And hopefully there's more grant opportunities available to help us with that.
What about ASL interpretation? I understand do you have some of it already, or is that something that is also you're working on improving?
Well, we're working on improving that as well, but we have made some partnerships with different ASL interpreters. So, for instance, we have the opportunity, like if someone wants to hold an event at the museum and requires an ASL interpreter, we can connect them right to a group that we've connected with on that. We actually are doing more testing on that too by having some ASL in the planetarium and those sorts of things. So we're working on that as we go.
All right, Rhiannon, thank you very much for being with us and telling us about the new tech this morning. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for taking the time to connect with me.
That was Rhiannon Lear-Blatcher, Director of Marketing, Sales, and Visitor Experience over at our Manitoba Museum.
Ever hear a really good radio show and fall in love right away? Fall in love at first listen with the CBC Listen app. Find CBC radio shows like As It Happens and Now or Never and stream them anytime, anywhere for free. Download CBC Listen today.
We are into the real cold now, folks. We've got cold warnings for across the Lakes region, as well as most of Winnipeg and southern Manitoba up north. It'll feel like minus 45. Down south, it'll feel like minus 40. Highway 75 is closed for a stretch. That is from 14 to the U.S. border still today. And Highway 23 Low Farm 275 is also closed. 788-3093 if you need us in any other commute news. A couple spots around the city are pesky too. Evergreen School Division and Lord Selkirk School Division are also both closed today, and that's the list to this hour. 6:23 the time. Let's build on what was announced on Friday. The federal government reaching what Prime Minister Mark Carney calls a landmark agreement with China. After a decade of tense relations between the two countries, Canada now allowing the import of up to 49,000 Chinese EVs, electric vehicles, a year. The tariff rate 6.1%. In exchange, China's going to remove tariffs on Canadian canola meal, lobsters, crabs, peas, and lower tariffs on Canadian canola overall to 15%. Joining us to talk more about the trade deal and what it looks like over the weekend and what reaction people had, Julian Karagesian is with us, former special advisor in the International Trade and Finance branch of the Department of Finance. He's now a visiting lecturer at McGill University's Department of Economics. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I would say over the weekend, a mixed political reaction. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, definitely a mixed political reaction. I think a lot of the country sees, or a lot of the political leaders across the country see the economic benefits of this new trade agreement with China. There are some, I think Ontario is the most exposed to what's going on in the US in terms of the trade war and the sectoral tariffs. And now they're also exposed to the importation of electric vehicles from China. Right now, it's only 49,000. It's only 2.5% of the market, but that may expand. So this mixed reaction, in some sense, in some very real sense, is understandable.
Let's talk about the good reaction, because I'm in the prairies here, of course. So canola farmers are saying it's not going to be immediate because they, have to plan their crops already and they'll see what happens. But obviously, producers are happy. What other sectors are going to benefit here?
So agri-food, obviously, as you mentioned, energy, particularly oil and gas. I think life sciences will benefit, and medical isotopes, which are from, produced in Ontario and other provinces. I think pretty much everything across the board could benefit from an expanded trading relationship with the world's second largest economy. And I think even Ontario will benefit in the medium and long term. And it really depends on how and really whether and how, and I think it's really a question of how we can get Chinese electric vehicle makers and those from other countries to come in and produce in Ontario at a time when the United States, the big three automakers, are being heavily pressured by President Trump to pull out entirely and not make any cars here at all. So I see benefits for Atlantic Canada in terms of fisheries, tourism, energy, prairie provinces, energy, agri-food, mining right across the country, and more. I think there's a potential for this trading relationship to double or even triple over the next 10 to 20 years.
Some politicians were concerned about retaliation from the U.S. over this deal. Over the weekend, President Trump did threaten further tariffs on the NATO countries, but that's around opposing the Greenland objectives. He had an initial positive reaction to this on Friday. But what does that look like? Does that need to be considered by Canada as we pursue our own trade deals with China?
It does. We do have to be concerned about President Trump. We've seen him make a lot of threats. Some of them were credible threats and some of them were not. So his initial positive reaction, that could change by today or tomorrow. We saw his senior trade representative, the USTR, U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer. He sent us a pretty thinly veiled threat on Friday saying that we would come to regret this decision. But I don't understand the logic behind that, because President Trump, his own president, won on a ticket of making America great again by bringing manufacturing and jobs back to the United States, back to the Rust Belt. And that means short-circuiting the trade system. That means putting tariffs on Canada in the Trumpian view of the world. So given now we're free, since the Trump administration is pursuing an America First policy, we can pursue a foreign and economic policy that's in our national interests. And it's in our direct national interests, including our national security interest, to protect our prosperity. And our economic model is under attack because our model is based in large part on trading with the United States. And so now we have to do what we should have done a long time ago, which is diversify, put our economic eggs in multiple baskets. And so China's the first stop. It's the second largest economy, and it's just a logical next step. And so we cannot accept from people like Jameson Greer and the Trump administration, we can't accept an enforced economic decline. If they don't want to trade as much with us anymore, we have to seek out new markets to protect the prosperity of current and future generations.
Which sectors are still looking for a win here, and what would need to be addressed if this is sort of the first part of a deal?
I think beyond agri-food and energy, we can talk about mining. We can talk about life sciences. We can also talk about all of the niche markets that Canada excels in. We have a lot of tech in this country. We don't produce machines on a large scale like China does or the US or Germany, but we have a lot of niche products in this country, right across the country, that would benefit from this. But I see mining as a next big one. And I also see manufacturing, cooperation in manufacturing as a next step, and potentially also selling aluminum to China.
Manufacturing always perks our ears up here in Manitoba, as does mining. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
That is via Zoom Live, Julian Karagesian, visiting lecturer at McGill University's Department of Economics. Well, while we were talking, Heather was handing me another sheet here. So here's a longer list of now school closures that are happening in Manitoba because of hazardous conditions. Evergreen to School Division, Red River Valley School Division, Lord Selkirk School Division, and Lakeshore School Division now have all closed their schools. Prairie Rose School Division has canceled buses. School is on, though. Hatarian Colony school sites are closed. Also in the DSFM, we have École Aurel-le-Moin that is closed. École Saint-Georges is closed, and no bus transportation in La Jumaudière, Saint-Jean-Baptiste, Saint-Agathe, Réal-Bérard, Saint-Joachim, Pointe-des-Champs, and Gabriel-Croix. So all of those have no buses. We'll repeat that through the morning. It's just that kind of day. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is minus 23. You'll have to warm up that car. It's going to be sunny today. Bit of a breeze, creating a wind chill close to minus 41, frostbite in minutes. Today's high is minus 19. Well, southern Manitoba and parts of the north are feeling January this morning. Cold warnings in place as that wind chill freezes below minus 40 in the south, more like minus 45 in parts of the north, and people are warned to cover all exposed skin because frostbite can develop within minutes. Yesterday, it was blowing snow and poor visibility. Semi-trucks and cars parked along a stretch of the Trans-Canada outside Winnipeg yesterday after the highway closed in a winter storm. At least a dozen highways were closed across Manitoba yesterday. Truck driver Manpreet Singh was heading to Edmonton when he was forced to stop. He was stuck near Headingley for several hours. Singh says road closures just need to take extra safety precautions. They're a regular hazard of the job, and drivers need to take extra safety precautions.
If you drive slowly and according to the condition, it's safe. If you making rush, then it will be definitely hurting.
Well, today, most highways have reopened except for two. Highway 23 from Low Farm to Highway 75 and Highway 75 from Highway 14 to the U.S. border are both still closed. A 7-year-old Manitoba girl was sexually exploited on Snapchat. Law enforcement and child protection advocates say they are seeing more children under 13 being lured online. CBC's Michelle Allen reports.
A stranger in another country reached her over Snapchat. Police say he sent the girl explicit photos and videos and coerced her into sending some back. Experts say they're seeing more victims alluring, and they're getting younger and younger.
Under 10, it used to be a surprise. Now it's
I would say it's more common and maybe not as shocking for what we're seeing coming into us.
Detective Sergeant Mike Olson is with Winnipeg Police's Internet Child Exploitation Team. Olson recommends supervising children whenever they're online. But he also says companies like Snapchat need to do more to prevent harm. The Canadian Centre for Child Protection says they've received over 1,200 reports of children under 13 being lured online. The number one platform? Snapchat. Jacques Marcoux is with the centre.
And we see all these documented cases of tech companies not doing enough, tech companies misleading, tech companies favoring certain design features over safety.
Snapchat says people under 13 aren't allowed on the app. It has some parental controls on teen accounts, but Marcoux says these don't work.
It's essentially designed to download responsibility onto the end user and kids inside of these inherently dangerously designed environments, and the platforms somehow absolve themselves of responsibility.
Marcoux says Canada needs to pass laws forcing social media companies to adhere to safety codes, or more Canadian children will be exploited. Michelle Allen, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is now airborne, heading to Switzerland. Carney's jet taking off from Doha, where he was talking trade with Qatari officials. In a few hours, Carney will be at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where he will see U.S. President Donald Trump and where Greenland is expected to dominate discussion. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A Winnipeg jewelry store says people have been lining up to buy and sell as gold prices soar. Dorota Shirley is the co-owner of Golden Hand Jewelry on Main Street. She says as prices are climbing, more people want to buy and sell, and that is creating challenge.
How can we keep up? We offer amazing deals and amazing customer service to everyone who comes here, but we're challenged by constantly rising inventory prices.
Shirley says the shop is adapting by bringing in lower-cost alternatives like yellow silver. Meanwhile, gold set a new record in early trading today, nearly $4,700 U.S. an ounce. Shovels hit the ground on nearly 5,000 new homes in Winnipeg last year. The city says it is the second highest annual total in Winnipeg's history. New data from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation shows housing starts in Winnipeg went up by 12% in 2025, more than double the Canadian average of about 5%. The city says its aggressive policy and planning changes helped increase housing starts. But while starts soared, fewer homes finished construction last year. Home completions dropped by more than 35% in 2025 compared to the year before. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into what's happening in your weather forecast now. It's affecting, as you heard, a lot of things. And Abby's here to run down how cold it is.
Good morning once again. We have that yellow warning in place for most regions across the province. We're talking about wind chills, dangerous wind chills in the valleys of -40s to -45 across the regions this morning. This just interprets frostbite in minutes. You look at the map, you find out it's not the usual colors we have this morning. It's frigid outside. It's a high-risk morning, and you will definitely feel those bone-chilling wind chills hit you, especially in Tuduli Lake and Brochet this morning, where we're seeing the wind chill values close to -45. While if we're talking about in southern Manitoba towards the lakes of Manitoba, we're seeing wind chills also close to -41. And then the Red River Valley, the Pembina Valley region, the Interlake region, we're also seeing wind chill values close to -41 this morning. But for Winnipeg, we are at -27 at this time. Temperature is going to stay around this -20s for most of the day before we reach a high of -19 later today. We will see the sunshine sometime later after 8 o'clock, but that will not be warming things up. That wind chill is going to be sticking with us all morning. So if you're making the transition from one bus to another, be prepared. You will notice it. Frostbite in minutes. The Pembina Valley region, we're looking at -23 there. Brandon is clocking -24. Dauphin is at -23. Gimli, we're we're seeing temperatures around minus 24, 25. Then up north, the powerful influence around in communities, we're looking at between minus 17 and minus 20 this morning. Some areas tracking minus 22. We're seeing light snow there. That should clear, and we'll see your temperatures warm up to minus 19 later. Thompson towards Nielsen House, we're seeing minus 24. Slim chance of morning flurries. Highs would just be around minus 22. While to Dooley Lake and Churchill, similar temperature this morning. We're seeing minus 25s and minus 27. However, the wind chill is close to minus 41 in those regions. Churchill experiencing some blowing snow at this time, and as the wind chill in Churchill feels like minus 45. So take it easy there. It's more of a morning of a dangerous cold, and frostbites will definitely happen if you expose yourself.
Yeah, so don't. Wear long johns, wear a balaclava, wear the gauntlet with the big wide, wear everything.
And your vehicles might make strange sounds.
Yeah, they'll be coughing at you. Okay, let's get into let's do road conditions, then I'll do school closures again because Sierra's popped in with those details from the commute.
Hi, Marcy. We'll start here in the city, and then we'll venture out. So we got a call from Mandy closer to the top of the hour. There's a stalled truck on southbound Kenniston just before the lights at Tuxedo in the curb lane. So that was a stalled truck on southbound Kenniston just before the lights at Tuxedo in the curb lane. As well, was hearing about a light standard being knocked down at Kenniston and Grant. There were crews on scene. As of when I got the call, wasn't super backed up, but I don't know what it's looking like right there. So if you're driving in that area, I'd love to know what's going on there. So Route 90 Kenniston at Grant, light standards was knocked down. Crews were on scene looking to get that up and running. As well, got a call from Zach kind of closer to the top of the hour as well. Lights out at Nairn and Kent. They weren't flashing, they were just completely out. And he mentioned that it looked like crews were getting on scene to take care of that. But if that is on your commute, you want to make sure you're proceeding with caution there. So lights out at Nairn and Kent. As well, if you're just tuning in now, Heather did mention these in her newscast, but I will mention them again if you're just joining us now. Some highways are still closed. So Highway 23 from Low Farm to Highway 75 and Highway 75 from Highway 14 to the U.S. border are still closed. Manitoba 511 reporting many highways around Winnipeg are partly covered, some with reduced visibility. So a reminder to check Manitoba 511 before heading out on the highways for current conditions or if any situations or closures have popped up. As well, it's kind of icy out there. I noticed that on my drive-in. So also be careful as you're driving here in the city in Winnipeg, as it is a little bit icy out there. That's everything for me right now, but if there is something that has popped up on your drive or you have an update on any of these situations, I'd love to hear from you. Give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Let's go to bus cancellations next. Thank you, Sierra. Prairie Rose School Division has canceled buses. Has the DSFM for the following schools: Lagimodier, Saint-Jean-Baptiste, Saint-Agathe, Riel-Bérard, Saint-Joachim, Pointe-des-Chênes, and Gabriel-Roy. So you're going to have to find another way. And these are the schools that are closed. So stay in your PJs, kids. In École Saint-Léman, Aurèlement, and École Saint-Georges. So those are closed. Also, the Hatarian Colony School is closed in the Prairie Rose School Division, but just that school. And these divisions are entirely closed: Evergreen, Red River Valley, Lord Selkirk School Division, and Lakeshore School Division. So no classes, no buses. But there's business news to talk about. So let's talk to Crystalie Ramlakan. How you doing?
I'm good, Marcy. I feel, sorry for you guys in those frigid, snowy temperatures.
We're used to it. We just got to get used to it again after those wild swings of zeros and weird stuff. Mark Carney, overseas on the trade tour. What's the latest there?
Yeah, so the Prime Minister says Qatar has committed to significant strategic investments for Canada's major building projects. So he says that capital will get projects built faster, supercharge energy industries, and create jobs for Canadians. So Carney says the two countries will strengthen cultural ties, which will include expanding direct flights to Qatar to boost tourism and business. And after years of stalled negotiations, Canada will aim to finalize the Investment Promotion and Protection Agreement with Qatar by this summer. Now, this visit is in an effort to boost trade and partnerships in artificial intelligence, infrastructure, energy, and defense with the Gulf country. And this is part of the government's push to expand trade ties beyond Canada's traditional allies, such as the United States. Of course, we saw that trade deal with China last week. And for more on all of this, here's Laurie Turnbull, who is a political science professor at Dalhousie University.
he's doing business with countries that do not share our values. In some cases, I think when we look at Qatar, are quite far away from our values, and the human rights record has been described as brutal, atrocious. This is important. This is a big moment where the Prime Minister is saying we're going to take a very different approach to our relationship in terms of trade and finding partners.
Now, Carney is wrapping up his 9-day trip abroad by attending the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, which starts today. And he is set to give a speech tomorrow outlining his vision for Canada in the world. And he will also be a special speaker at a session for investors on Wednesday.
Davos, obviously, a lot of wealthy people are going to be there. There's a new report that says actually billionaires are richer than ever.
Yeah, that's right. So their wealth has risen sharply to a record high of more than $18 trillion, and that's according to global charity Oxfam. The number of billionaires reached more than 3,000 last year, and their fortunes increased by 16%. And Oxfam says the super rich often use their wealth to secure political power and media ownership, noting Elon Musk's involvement in the U.S. administration at the start of last year and Jeff Bezos' ownership of the Washington Post. So Oxfam says the outsized influence that the super rich have over politicians, economies, and the media has deepened inequality. So the charity has released these reports to coincide with the World Economic Forum every year since 2014. And Oxfam is calling for global tax policies to ensure that the rich pay their fair share. It wants to see governments make national inequality reduction plans and for them to tax the super rich to reduce their power and to prioritize stronger firewalls between politics and wealth.
And finally, people could start seeing ads while using their favorite AI chatbot.
Yeah, that's right. So OpenAI says it's going to begin testing ads on ChatGPT in the coming weeks. And this is as the company looks to increase revenue to cover its soaring costs. The ads will initially appear in the U.S. for free and lower tier subscribers. But AI companies are reluctant to interrupt their users' experiences with these ads. But, only a small percentage of OpenAI's nearly 1 billion users pay for subscription services. And since ChatGPT's launch in 2022, OpenAI's valuation has soared to $500 billion, higher than any other private company, and some expect it to go public with $1 trillion valuation, but it also burns through cash on the powerful computing required to deliver its services. Remember, there's, energy and money behind every time someone types a little prompt into ChatGPT or asks their phone a question to ChatGPT. So OpenAI is now bringing its business model, it seems, closer to tech giants such as Google and Meta, which have built advertising empires on the back of their free-to-use services.
All right, Crystalie, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
That's Crystalie Ramlicam with our business news. And while we were talking, Heather did pop in. A 5th school division will not be open today because of the weather and road conditions. So Interlake School Division is also closed today. .45 a.m. Monday morning, January 19th. And what are you going to do if you're stuck at home today? Well, maybe you'll be journaling. We have a tune about that, actually. This is a track that highlights a Winnipeg artist's gift for intimate journal entry and storytelling in her tunes. From her 2025 debut album, There's a Place I Go. This is Laura Lucas and Easy Goin'.
This is the part where you tell me that we can be friends only if I want to. This is the part where I lie and say it doesn't hurt just to be around you. And this is the part where I try to remember the bad things, but nothing comes up. And this This is the face that I hold in a place when you tell me you're seeing someone. It's hard to be easy going when you make it look easy going. 'Cause it isn't easy knowing that it was just a moment for you. Were you even there? It doesn't feel fair. It's hard to be easy going when you make it look easy going. This is the space in between everything that I want and the stain on your t-shirt. This is the hope that I locked in the back of a drawer, 'cause I'm not a believer. And this is the wall that gets taller and taller each time it falls to the ground. And this is the weight that I'm trying to shake, the one you so gently put down. It's hard to be easy going when you make it look easy going. 'Cause it isn't easy knowing that it was just a moment for you. Were you even there? It doesn't feel fair. It's hard to be easy going when you make it look easy going. Well, if April won't change your mind, I don't know what to say. You'll go on either way. Well, if April won't change your mind, I don't know what to say. You'll go on either way. It's hard to be easy going when you make it look easy going. 'Cause it isn't easy knowing that it was just a moment for you. Were you even there? It doesn't feel fair. It's hard to be easy going when you make it look easy going.
Winnipeg's Laura Lucas and Easy Goin'. That's from her debut album, came out last year. She played to a big hometown crowd last fall, was really excited about that, so we'll see what happens for her in 2026. It is 9 minutes now to 7 o'clock. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are watching and listening to Information Radio here on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube in a frigid Winnipeg, where we continue to deal with cold, with some school division closures, and also with some highways still closed. 23 from Low Farm to 75, and 75 from Highway 14 to the U.S. border, both closed today because of the weather. Well, next on the show, we've been hearing a lot about Canada's international trade relations lately. But another big theme from Mark Carney since the election last spring is strengthening our domestic markets, removing barriers to trade and labor mobility between our provinces and territories. So in November, the government finalized regulations on that front. And 2026 is supposed to be the year where all this gets put into action. And we're watching for Manitoba. Manitoba and Ontario were early to adopt the relationship and say we're going to remove some barriers. But then, of course, last month, Doug Ford pouring out the Crown Royal, not impressing anybody in Gimli. Let's talk about what might come next. Here, Ryan Minucha is with us. He is an interprovincial trade expert and research fellow at the C.D. Howe Institute. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. So great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. So how important is interprovincial trade for Canada right now? What's the context for this?
Over the weekend, we saw Canada clinch some great agreements with China. And Canada trades, about $40 billion worth of goods and services, exports $40 billion worth of goods and services to China. Big number. Turns out Canada trades amongst the provinces 15 times that amount, over $500 billion worth of goods and services interprovincially. So it just goes to show, great accomplishment, great clinching of a deal with China, but our internal market matters a great deal as well.
The number I have between Manitoba and Ontario, between the two provinces in 2021 is the figure I have, was valued at $19.5 billion. So you're not wrong. What changes can we expect to see this year moving forward?
Yeah, last year was a year of agreements, bilateral, as you mentioned, Premier Canoe and Premier Ford, in great photo ops, inking deals. Canadians became accustomed to seeing our provincial leaders standing as if they were leaders of foreign states with one another. Some crazy images. But this year is the year where, Prime Minister Carney's, emphasis on the internal market, the One Canada economy, was it platitude? Was it electoral promises, or was it real? Because it is easy to claim that you are being serious about internal trade. It is another thing to actually implement. So, for example, will we finally see seamless worker mobility? Why do we care about worker mobility? Well, are we Canadians credentialed as a dental assistant credentialed in Winnipeg going to be treated equivalently in Ontario? Or are they going to be discriminated against? That's been one source of tension, for example. It's not just labor mobility and credential recognition. We were promised 30-day turnarounds by some provinces will we actually see that on the recognition of credentials? But, building, Churchill, building pipelines, building homes, it comes down to being able to get workers and small, medium-sized businesses to where they need to be to activate on all these projects. And when things like worker mobility is hindered, when we have different electrical codes across the country, when we have different fall safety training programs, meaning that you have to send your crews a week ahead of time to undergo recertification and makes that job suddenly unprofitable for you, that's what we're talking about here.
And unless the feds sort of standardize everything, which the provinces won't want them to do because they all have created those rules and regulations individually, it's going to be hard to figure out how quickly, that could is that going to really get in the way, as you said, or delay some of this. Interprovincial labor mobility was highlighted for Manitoba as well, by the way, just for local listeners here. In this specific act, I understand food and alcohol, though, are not included. Why is that?
Well, I have kudos to, Manitoba being miles ahead of the rest of the country on alcohol direct to consumer, very liberalized in Winnipeg, in Manitoba generally. Alcohol is being treated under a separate MOU, and it should be by, the May long weekend that Canadians, excluding those in the territories and Newfoundland, should have direct to consumer access for alcohol. And for whatever reason, Marcy, for good or worse, Canadians measure the health of their internal trade by the booze trade. And so will provinces be able to get across the line on direct-to-consumer for alcohol? We're accustomed now in 2026 to one-click shopping, to your doorstep. Drones are going to start delivering our goods to our front doors very shortly. Why is the way that we trade alcohol so dated? That's one indicia of it. Food is a different thing. You mentioned food. Food was excluded from the big goods agreement at the end of last year. And the reason food, there's trepidation. There was a lot moving up at once, and we were fearful about losing market access internationally if our foreign trading partners saw us changing how we regulate food, start to scare them, make it harder for Canadian food to get elsewhere. But if we do it in a controlled manner, we can certainly make it easier for small, medium-sized businesses to sell their food on the other side of a provincial border. It's a balance, but 2025 seemed to be too quick for the food.
How difficult is it going to be when you think about the politics behind all of this? Because, of course, when you're talking about a federal government, everybody's under the same federal government, no matter what party might be in power at a different time. But ideologically, then now you've also got, all these provinces and territories next door to each other. And we're kind of in the West, a bit of an anomaly with the NDP in charge of our province. I just wonder whether or not that could also be something that gets in the way here.
Yeah. You could see a more active federal government. Federal government could condition certain transfers, labor market transfers to provinces on tightening up on labor mobility, making it easier for people to move, conditioning it. You could see a more aggressive Premier Carney if they were serious. You could see, you do see, the pan-Canadian consensus, the elbows up movement, coming down a little bit. Ontario passing the Buy Ontario legislation at the end of last year, saying that Ontario government, when it goes out to procure, needs to procure first, if they can, from an Ontario business. Not great for the internal trade liberalization movement. And you're seeing, are we going to see some, secession referendum, discussion in Quebec, making it harder to get consensus on certain mobility items and trade items with Quebec? Yes, and premiers, especially when you're faced with elections, whether this year or early next year, are going to prioritize local interests, and so that is something we have to contend with.
And we go to the polls not this year, but next year in Manitoba. All right, Ryan, thank you very much.
Yes, talk soon.
That is Ryan Minucha setting up 2026 in interprovincial trade and what that could look like. He is an interprovincial trade expert and research fellow at the C.D. Howe Institute. It's 3 minutes now to 7 o'clock. Coming up on the show after 7 o'clock. It is Blue Monday, third Monday in January. Doesn't mean, though, you have to feel down. We talk about this every year. It started as a marketing ploy. Stay tuned. Why do we still, though, feel somehow blue on this day? In addition, coming up after 7 o'clock, we'll talk to a parent who's been having tough conversations with their kids about the news specifically coming out of the States. How do you ease anxiety when that news seems constantly scary, not just to kids, but to, well, a lot of us? So stay tuned. That's coming up after 7. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells in our headlines.
And it really is Blue Monday. You're going to be feeling blue as the skin turns blue because of these cold weather warnings we're under across all of southern Manitoba and parts of the north. The wind chill will be colder than -40 in the south, more like -45 in parts of the north. So we'll hear more about that coming up as well. Manitoba RCMP are investigating after a 7-year-old girl was coerced to send nude images to a man on Snapchat. We're going to hear more from the I-Team on that story in our next local news at 7:30.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
-23, partly cloudy in Winnipeg. It'll be sunny and -19 today, but again with wind chill. Much colder feeling. Stalled truck southbound Keniston at Tuxedo. Keniston at Grant. Light standard down. Nairn at Kent lights out. Also 75 closed. Highway 14 to the U.S. border. Highway 23 Low Farm to 75. Also closed. In addition, Evergreen School Division is closed today. So is Lord Selkirk. So is Red River Valley and Lakeshore School Division. Hatarian Colony School is closed. And we also have DSFM canceling bus transportation to a number of schools. In addition, École Aurel Lemoine is closed and École Saint George is closed. Take it easy. Check with your school.
On the Current. It's all really hands-on. Life up there is really very physical and also hard at times as well.
I'm Pia Chattopadhyay. Life in Attawapiskat is undeniably hard, but that's where the Juno-nominated Cree musician Adrian Sutherland chooses to live and raise his family. Why Attawapiskat will always be home for Adrian? Coming up on The Current.
The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says a trade war with the US is not in anyone's interest. Starmer's comments are from a national address this morning. It is in response to US President Donald Trump saying he will impose a 10% levy on 8 nations opposing his plans to take over Greenland. The CBC's Crystal Gomansing has the latest from London.
Alliances endure because they're built on respect and partnership, not pressure.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer attempted to be clear and measured, not wanting to further frustrate the US president.
Mature alliances are not about pretending differences don't exist. They are about addressing them directly, respectfully, and with a focus on results.
President Donald Trump wants to take over Greenland, saying the U.S. needs it for national security. He threatened 8 nations, including the UK, with a 10% tariff if they continue to oppose him. Kellyanne Shaw was the deputy assistant to the president for international economic affairs in the first Trump administration.
It's about using tariffs as leverage to achieve a non-economic objective. And in this case, it's about a closer relationship with Greenland.
Mette Frederiksen, the Prime Minister of Denmark, said Sunday, "We want to cooperate," adding Europe will not be blackmailed. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron said if pushed, the European Union could hit the U.S. with what he called a trade bazooka, invoking for the first time the EU's anti-coercion instrument. Stormer says no one will win in a trade war.
The use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
European leaders will be meeting later this week to plot next steps. Those will be determined by how the U.S. president responds and what he has to say about Starmer's speech. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
Trump's threats against Greenland and its allies are overshadowing Mark Carney's trade tour. The Prime Minister has visited China and Qatar, and right now he is en route to Davos, Switzerland for the World Economic Forum. Carney may want to focus on boosting investment in Canada, but he is expected to get a lot more questions about what he's willing to do to support Greenland. Tom Perry reports.
Prime Minister Mark Carney took questions from reporters on Sunday after he met with Qatar's leader. The Prime Minister was asked about Greenland and U.S. President Donald Trump's threat to impose tariffs on European countries, including France, Germany, Sweden, Norway, and the U.K., that have sent a small contingent of troops to Greenland to take part in exercises, a move seen as a sign of support for Denmark. Carney was asked whether Canada would consider adding troops to join the European contingent.
It's a serious situation, and we're concerned. We're concerned about this escalation, to be absolutely clear.
Carney said Canada would always support sovereignty and territorial integrity, that the future of Greenland was up to Greenlanders and Denmark, but he made no mention of Canada possibly sending troops. But later in the day, the Globe and Mail reported Canada was considering just that. And two sources have confirmed to CBC News the Canadian military has drawn up contingency plans to send a small number of military personnel to Greenland to join European allies, though no final decision has been made. If Canada were to follow through, it could lead to some severe political blowback from Donald Trump. The U.S. president is expected to attend the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland this week, which is where the Prime Minister is headed today. Tom Perry, CBC News, Doha.
Spain's prime minister is canceling his trip to Davos. His country is dealing with its worst train accident in more than a decade. At least 39 people have died in the overnight collision in southern Spain. As Megan Williams reports, investigators are trying to determine the cause of the crash.
The derailment and collision tore through the line Sunday evening near Ademuz in the southern Spanish province of Córdoba, leaving mangled passenger cars knocked on their side, with rescuers still searching for survivors. Passengers described the impact like an earthquake. They broke windows in desperate efforts to escape their mangled train cars.
Muy mal, muy mal. Y lo tenías delante.
Some people were dying in front of us, said this survivor, and there was nothing you could do. Authorities say the rear of a high-speed train traveling from Malaga to Madrid derailed and struck an oncoming train. Emergency crews worked through the night, and a nearby sports center has been converted into a temporary treatment facility. More than 150 people are injured. Several remain in critical condition. Transport Minister Oscar Puente said the cause of the crash remains unknown, calling it unusual, given the track had been recently renovated. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
Photographers capture British actor and model Damien Hurley walking into a London court this morning. He's among a group of high-profile plaintiffs accusing the publisher of the UK's Daily Mail of invading their privacy. Prince Harry, Elton John, and Elizabeth Hurley are also plaintiffs in the case. The group alleged Associated Newspapers Limited hired private investigators to bug their cars, obtain their private records, and eavesdrop on phone calls. The publisher has denied the allegations. The trial is expected to last 9 weeks. A sexual assault survivor is demanding accountability from the Ontario Police College. She spoke to officers in a training course. She says they left disparaging comments. As Angelina King reports, there are questions about where those officers are working and whether they investigate sexual assaults.
I felt dismissed. I felt judged.
CBC News isn't identifying her because she's a victim of sexual assault. For years, she'd been sharing her story with police officers training to become sexual assault investigators through the Ontario Police College in hopes of improving the system for other survivors. But now she says she's humiliated after feedback comments left in course evaluations. One officer called her damaged and wrote she hasn't taken initiative to improve herself. Another said she should see a psychologist.
It's like those officers missed the whole point of the talk. They missed the part of not making judgments, of not carrying their bias into the situation.
In August, she raised concerns with the college. The director said he'd look into it, but didn't follow up.
It's really disheartening.
Sunny Mariner is an expert on sexual assault survivors' experiences when they access the Canadian justice system. She says if those officers are working on those types of cases, that's a problem.
A lot of the stereotypes that we saw in the comments, those are sometimes root causes of why investigations go sideways.
Ontario's Ministry of the Solicitor General oversees the college and didn't answer questions about whether the officers are investigating sexual assaults. It said it would follow up with the survivor directly. But she says the damage is done. She no longer feels comfortable sharing her story with the college. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Canadians will get a better picture of the country's economy later this morning. Statistics Canada is expected to release December inflation figures. Many economists are predicting the annual rate to hold steady at 2.2%, though food inflation is expected to rise year over year. The countdown to the 2026 FIFA World Cup is on. It starts in June, and Canada is hosting several games. It is expected to draw more than 1 million visitors, but mixed in with the excitement is some concern. As Jennifer Grassa tells us, Canada's overwhelmed health systems may not be able to handle any extra demand.
We had one ICU bed available.
That was what Catherine Varner experienced during one of the Toronto Blue Jays' World Series games last fall. As an emergency doctor in downtown Toronto, Varner worried what would happen if a large number of people suddenly needed care.
So we are constantly running our healthcare system at 100% capacity.
In an editorial published today in the Canadian Medical Association Journal ahead of FIFA World Cup games, Varner lays out these concerns, which are rooted in years of research.
This is a setup for the spread of contagious or infectious diseases.
Brian Conway is the medical director of Vancouver's Infectious Diseases Center. He says food and waterborne illnesses like hepatitis A are the most common at big events. But his biggest concern? Measles.
Measles is so contagious. It will spread potentially like wildfire.
These are some of the things that we're starting to plan for.
Dr. Andrew Beckett is a trauma surgeon in downtown Toronto. He's part of a FIFA emergency planning group.
We're looking at ways of being able to surge capacity by shutting down some elective surgeries if needed. Also recalling people available to help out in a crisis.
I think the challenge is execution of those plans.
While Varner knows the system will adapt in the face of an emergency, she worries it will come at the cost of quality care. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba, but actually a challenging morning across our province. Thanks for being with us. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC 89.3 FM. Also 990 AM on the app or on YouTube. And if you have been watching the weather on our YouTube channel, the whole map is like purple and pink. That means cold, baby. Very cold. We've got some warnings out there, and Heather in a moment is going to tell us what's closed roadway-wise. We also have some school divisions that have called it, so we have that list as well. Kind of picking up where Friday morning left off. In addition, though, this hour on Information Radio, we have details on an I-Team investigation, and it is a serious one about a very young girl. A 7-year-old Manitoba girl was recently sexually exploited on a popular app. I-Team reporter Michelle Allen will join us coming up just before 8 o'clock with more. In addition, today is the third Monday in January. It doesn't mean you have to feel blue. We'll talk all about that. Right now, let's get into how the weather is affecting things out there on your Monday morning here. Heather Wells, what's going on?
Good morning. Well, paralyzed by cold, wind, and snow. Yesterday, at least a dozen highways were shut down in hazardous highway conditions. This morning, all have reopened except for 2. But now it is so cold, all it takes is a bit of a breeze to create dangerous wind chills. Much of southern Manitoba and parts of the north under cold warnings this morning. Wind chill in the south feeling like -40 and colder, -45 in the north. And scrambling for gold. Winnipeggers are lining up to buy and sell as prices just keep climbing. One local jewelry business says these soaring prices also come with some challenges. We'll hear that in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, we hope you plugged your car in, but as Abby and I were saying last hour, good luck getting the plug out of the socket this morning.
Always a struggle, Marcy, especially when you have like a freezing overnight period and those plugs are like frozen into the socket. So you might want to spend some time dealing with that this morning. Adding to that, we have extreme cold gripping most of the province. Yellow level warnings active from the northern part of the province all the way tracking it down south. We're seeing wind chills in the valleys of -45 through the morning up north, and the south is not spared. We're also seeing wind chills around -40 hitting Winnipeg and the lakes this morning, so you might want to bundle up. Frostbite in minutes. Winnipeg, we're still frigid at -23 at this time. It feels like -41 outside. The city will see some sunshine. We'll warm up to -19 later before dropping to -23. Across the southern regions, we're seeing similar temperatures, and of course the wind chill is something to take into consideration. While up north, it's more about the brutal wind chills. We're seeing -37 in Churchill already. We're seeing -44 rather in Churchill, the wind chill in Churchill already at this time. So take it easy. Winnipeg -23, and it feels like -41 outside.
Here are your school closures. Here's who's staying in their jammies. Interlake School Division closed today. So was Evergreen, Red River Valley, Lord Selkirk, and Lakeshore. Now, these are buses canceled. Prairie Rose School Division has canceled buses. However, the Hatarian Colony School in that area is closed. The sites are closed. In addition, in terms of bus transportation being canceled in the DSFM, Lagimodière, Saint-Jean-Baptiste, Saint-Agathe, Réal-Bérard, Saint-Joachim, Pointe-des-Chênes, and Gabriel-Roy. And 2 schools are closed in the DSFM, École Aurèle-Lemoine and École Saint-Georges. In the city of Winnipeg, there's also some problems with traffic. It's pretty icy out there, Sierra.
Yeah, it is quite icy. I noticed that when I was driving in this morning. I could see the ice reflecting right back at me as I was driving, made me slow down a little bit and take it slow. So just a reminder to drivers right now, take it slow out there. It's a little bit icy as we've been going through that. We went through that ice, like freezing, then thaw, then freeze, thaw.
And they scraped.
Exactly, and then they scraped. So be careful there. I'll go through the situations that I've heard about here in the city. It's been a while since I've gotten any update on these situations, but I'm going to read them out. And if you're driving in the area that these situations are in, I'd love to hear an update. So Mandeep called, there was a stalled truck on southbound Kenniston just before Tuxedo, or the lights at Tuxedo, I should say, and that was in the curb lane. So a stalled truck on southbound Kenniston just before the lights at Tuxedo in the curb lane. As well, was hearing about a light standard being knocked down at Kenniston and Grant. Crews were on scene trying to get that back up and running there. Last I heard, it wasn't super backed up, but that could change. That could have changed as we look ahead into this 7 o'clock hour. As well, got a call from Zach about lights being out at Nairn and Kent. They weren't flashing; they were completely out. He mentioned it looked like crews were getting on the scene. Again, this was about an hour ago, so it's been a little bit of time. But if you're in that area, proceed with caution as you're approaching Nairn and Kent. The lights are out, not flashing, but completely out. And as we've been reiterating throughout the morning, but I will say it again, some highway closures that we are still seeing. Highway 23 from Low Farm to Highway 75, and Highway 75 from Highway 14 to the U.S. border. Looks like a lot of the highways are starting to be reported as bare, according to Manitoba 511, but there are still some highways looking a little bit more northwest of Winnipeg that are being reported as partly covered. And just a reminder to check Manitoba 511 if you are heading out on the highways for current conditions and any closures, and if any situations have come up. If you have any updates on the situations that I just talked about, or if you're out on the highways, I'd love to know what you're seeing out there. The number to call is 204-788-3093.
Well, how do you talk to your kids about the news specifically coming out of America? We're in a province where often people would just cross the border, a couple hours away, or going to maybe Grand Forks, maybe down to Minneapolis to see an NFL game or something. But the news right now is something that is shifted and changed over the years, for sure. So whether we're talking about the ICE agent killing the civilian and shooting another person in separate incidents in recent weeks, or the takeover of Venezuela, or the threats to take over Greenland, it can seem scary for a lot of people, including young people. Having those conversations with your kids can be challenging, but my next guest says it's necessary. Elliot Long is a Winnipeg parent with 3 children, one of whom is 15 years old, and they have a lot of questions about what's going on. I spoke with Elliot about navigating that.
Good morning.
So how are conversations about what's happening in the United States started at your house? Do they come up from the kids?
Sometimes, yeah. I think it kind of depends. Sometimes they ask. Sometimes I see an opportunity where they're kind of just hanging out in the living room area or something like that, where we can just kind of start a conversation.
And I mentioned some topics, but what types of things, are asked, or do you seek to talk about with your kids?
Um, they so I mean, they come across the stuff like small bits of information on things like Twitter, or sorry, not Twitter, on TikTok and stuff like that. And so sometimes they come up and ask questions. Did this happen? My son had asked something about Venezuela. He wasn't really sure. He had kind of heard something about that. So we've talked about what's going on in Palestine and in Israel, and we've talked about just kind of the presidency in the States, and kind of what that means for our family, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So sometimes it's world events, sometimes it's about the U.S. specifically.
Yes.
What are some of the concerns that your kids bring up?
Well, my son has actually expressed a pretty big concern about North America, even just kind of potentially not being the same place for him to grow up as me. If that makes sense. I think he has these sort of ideas of America and these places that he really wants to visit. He really wanted to go to Miami and Fort Lauderdale with a friend who has family down there. And so he's sad that that can't happen. And
Why won't that happen for him?
well, we've decided together that it's not safe right now to go to the States. We were planning on a trip shortly after Trump was inaugurated, but we decided to cancel. And so, yeah, we just decided it's not worth it to take that risk.
Yeah. And why does that risk resonate with your family?
Well, I'm a queer and trans parent, so it directly affects us, and it's just like I said, it's just not worth it. We would just find somewhere else to go if we want to. Yeah.
I understand your kids have seen online videos of, if you think about last year, the shooting of Charlie Kirk, and then in recent weeks, of course, Renee Good, who was shot by the ICE agent here recently, not here, Minneapolis, rather recently. How does that make you feel that that's what's coming through some of their threads now?
Yeah, it's upsetting. It's very upsetting that we live in a world that there just isn't a lot of privacy, and things that previously would have been or could have been edited out of things that's not always the case. So they come across these things on their own. My kids had they had seen the shooting of Charlie Kirk as well as Renee Good before I'd even had a chance to talk to them, because it was just absolutely everywhere. So, because of that, I feel I have to, right, talk to them, because otherwise they're gonna see things online and stuff like that. And even though we're supervising them, and the parental controls don't catch everything, there's just so much misinformation out there and stuff.
What resonated with them out of the Renee Good shooting? I'm curious, because obviously we are told that Renee and her partner were part of the queer community in Minneapolis, and you've identified as being a queer. How difficult is that? Does it hit differently? Did it hit differently for your kids and your family,
Yeah,
or more
it
directly, I
it
should say?
does. Yeah, it does. I mean, I think that um in general, like they feel safer in Canada, where we know there's at least some, opposition to the Trump administration. But no, it certainly does. I mean, our kids have consistently found it confusing when people, like, if people have something awful to say to us or something homophobic, it's confusing to them.
And I should have finished my thought there. Sorry, hit differently. I was implied. I know you knew what I said, but hit differently than if somebody was with a straight family, just because of that direct connection. How do you walk the line as a parent, and not with the emotions? If one of those emotions is right now, in a lot of people, no matter their age, fear. How do you walk that line with the kids so you don't cause them to panic, for example? I guess.
For sure. I mean, I think that it depends on the child. Like, I think people, you kind of know your own child and maybe what they can sort of handle. I keep myself really open to any questions, feelings that they're having. Kids ask really tough questions, and I think sometimes it's also valid to say, like, I don't know, or I'll have to think about this for a bit. So yeah, so like I said, so it goes just kind of based on the child. And we talk a lot about, like, these things are important, and they can and do affect us, but we also have to look after ourselves, because falling sort of into a pit of depression, or sadness or fear, if you will, just isn't helpful to anybody. And it's like, it's okay. I tell them, it's okay for you guys to still, just like, be kids, enjoy being kids, but it's important to be informed about these things as well.
Elliot, anything to add, as so many families are grappling and learning from each other in these conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, keeping yourself open to these questions is so important, because even if they seem inappropriate, kids are going to ask questions, and if they don't have the answers, they're going to seek them from somewhere else. And so I think it's important to keep those conversations, like, happening. And it's important to know too that even though this is a lot of this is going on in other places in the world, you know that these things do trickle up to Canada as well. I mean, there was just Patrick Allen joking about ice in Canada. So, these opinions and things do come up here. So it's very important. That, and we also try to be very careful online. There's also, like, often, like, an alt-right sort of, like, bias that comes out of a lot of these TikTok and YouTube videos that kind of leads you down like a rabbit hole where things just get more extreme. So we're always try to be very careful about things online and media literacy in general.
Thank you very much for your perspective as a parent. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Elliot Long is a parent, local, of 3 children here. They've been having conversations with their kids about the news, specifically coming out of the States was our angle there. On media literacy, though, as you're about to hear in our news this morning, we'll have an I-Team report on a story we've been reporting on, which is about a 7-year-old Manitoba girl who was recently sexually exploited online. So stay tuned. That is coming up. Right now, I just want to mention a couple things that have cleared in traffic before we turn to sports and Scott Reguer. So a truck cleared southbound Kenaston, approaching lights at Tuxedo. Jesse, thanks for the update. Also, Light Standard is causing backups and running at Kenaston and Grant. That was knocked down. Thanks to Brian for that. So that looks like, is it cleared? Or it's cleared now? Pardon me, I misread that. That's my fault. So that is cleared now. So you're okay at Kenaston and Grant. So thanks, Brian, for the update. Heather Wells with an update on school closures here. Sunrise School Division east of the city has also just called it. They're closed today. In addition to Interlake, Evergreen, Red River Valley, Lord Selkirk, and Lakeshore, Prairie Rose has canceled buses. Hatarian Colony school sites are closed. Highway 23 Low Farm to 75 closed. Highway 75 from 14 to the the U.S. border is closed. In addition, in the DSFM, we have a number of problems as well. Bus transportation is cancelled in Lagimodière, Saint-Jean-Baptiste, Saint-Agathe, Réal-Burrard, Saint-Joachim, Pointe-le-Chêne, Gabriel-Roy, and also closed École Aurel-Lemoine and École Saint-Georges. Weather, people. It's all icy. It's all cold. It's all crazy. Let's get to sports with Scott Regehr. Hello to you.
Oof.
Right?
Good morning.
Yeah.
I guess.
Kind of a good morning. We had this Friday, too. So, Manitoba, welcome to January. Hockey, a homecoming of sorts when the Jets play in Chicago tonight, right?
Yeah, Jonathan Toews, Marcy, will be playing his first game back at the United Center as a member of an away team. A first-round pick of Chicago, Toews spent over 1,100 games with that franchise, winning 3 cups in the process. In an interview posted on the Winnipeg Jets website, he was asked what it'll be like tonight.
Thought about it a little bit, especially seeing when Kaner went back and he scored the overtime winner. But either way, I'm excited to go back. It's going to be strange. Happy and sad at the same time. Obviously, life goes on, but I'm happy to be right where I am right now, and definitely very thankful for the years I got to spend there.
Captain Sirius, Jonathan Toews. Patrick Kane, who he referenced there, received a lengthy ovation when he made his return to Chicago, and that was as a member of the despised Detroit Red Wings. One can only imagine what kind of reception Jonathan Toews is going to get tonight. That's puck drop at 7:30. Meanwhile, a record-setting crowd in D.C. yesterday in the PWHL. More than 17,000 on hand for a game that saw New York beat Montreal. This is a new record for professional women's hockey in the U.S. And, of course, the Takeover Tour, the PWHL Takeover Tour, is in Winnipeg coming up March 22nd. Montreal will play Ottawa.
Let's talk about soccer. There was chaos at one of the world's most important tournaments.
Yeah, the African Cup of Nations, where Senegal and host Morocco squared off in the final yesterday in a futuristic stadium in Rabat, with both sides boasting some of the world's biggest stars. It was a showcase event for the continent. But with things scoreless in extra time and the Moroccans awarded a penalty kick, things went pear-shaped. In protest, the Senegalese coach demanded his players leave the pitch, causing a close to half-hour delay. Then, Sadio Mane, a former Liverpool striker who's one of the best on the planet, coaxed his teammates back onto the pitch, where they ended up winning 1-0.
Honestly, I think it would have been really sad and unfortunate to see a final end like that. Personally, I think it's impossible to convey such an image to the whole world. African football is followed now more than ever. African football has developed in an incredible way. So for me, it was about honor. I'd rather lose than end a match like that. And I think that's what pushed me to tell the lads to come back out onto the pitch and play our football.
There are questions about what discipline Senegal could face. FIFA head Gianni Infantino has called their protest unacceptable, says he expects the appropriate discipline will be taken. Could that be a World Cup ban? That would be harsh, but it is possible. So for those who have tickets to go to Toronto to see Senegal play in late June, stay tuned.
Ooh. And in tennis, a disappointing end to the Australian Open for Canada's top player.
Yeah, that's Felix Auger-Aliassime. He's ranked 7th in the world right now, Marcy, but he got bounced in the first round, although it wasn't his opponent, Portugal's Nuno Borges, who was responsible, at least not mostly responsible for the bouncing. That was down to Auger-Aliassime's legs, which would not stop cramping. His muscles are overtired. The heat in Melbourne did not help, and I guess there was no maple syrup or pickle juice on hand to help him rehydrate in quick order. So we still have Denis Shapovalov and Victoria Mboko going through to the second round, and Leylah Fernandez plays her opening round match tonight in Melbourne.
I'm still vibrating from all the NFL playoffs this weekend.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yesterday, speaking of
incredible.
Chicago, Jets being in that town tonight, heartbreak for the Bears.
Well, they got a quarterback for the first time in franchise history in Caleb Williams, but he, despite his heroics, they couldn't get it done against the Rams.
If you want to see heroics, watch the last, 18 seconds of that game?
Oh, yeah, something else.
He tied it up, but then they went on to lose. All right, thank you.
You bet.
Rams moving forward in that one in case you're following the NFL. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is minus 23. It's going to be bright and sunny, but continuing very cold. In fact, dangerously cold. The wind chill minus 41 this morning just because of a bit of a northwest breeze. Our high today is minus 19, and cover up is the warning from Environment Canada this morning. as southern Manitoba and parts of the north are shivering under those extreme wind chills. Cold warnings are in place as the wind chill freezes below minus 40 in the south, more like minus 45 in parts of the north. People are being warned to cover all exposed skin as frostbite can develop in minutes. Well, part of the Trans-Canada outside Winnipeg was backed up with vehicles on Sunday. Wind and blowing snow making it hard to see, closing about 150 kilometers of the highway. The Trans-Canada was closed between Winnipeg and Sydney, one of at least a dozen highways shut down across the province. Ken Scarf says Highway 1 was, quote, plugged up solid with vehicles when he filled his tank at a gas station near Headingley.
I guess it's for safety. They want to keep the highway safe, so they've been closing it quite a few times in the last little while. But it's all for all our safety, so that's good.
Heather, we've just lost your sound.
Oh, there you go. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was just telling you, Highway 23 from Low Farm to Highway 75 is still closed this morning, and so is Highway 75 from Highway 14 to the U.S. border. Those are the two closures that remain in place. Manitoba RCMP are investigating after a 7-year-old girl was coerced to send nude images to a man on Snapchat. Search warrant documents say the mother found nude images and video on a Snapchat account the girl was using and reported it to police. She also found explicit messages sent from the man to the girl in the app. Now, in September, RCMP asked Snapchat to turn over the IP address and email address of that man. Jacques Marcoux is with the Centre for Child Protection. He says more kids under 13 are being targeted every year.
Connections creates more engagement. More engagement means more revenue. And so all those things creates a perfect storm where you have just more kids at a younger age spending more time in these platforms.
An RCMP spokesperson says they tracked the IP address to a man in the United Kingdom. It's sending the file to police in that jurisdiction. Snapchat says they are committed to stopping child exploitation from happening on their platform. You can hear more on this iTeam story coming up in this next half hour right here on Information Radio. U.S. President Donald Trump's threats against Greenland and its allies are overshadowing Mark Carney's trade tour. Trump says he will impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming out of any European nation opposing his administration's plan to take over Greenland. Now, Carney is coming off visits in China and Qatar, and right now he's on his way to Davos, Switzerland, for the World Economic Forum. Carney may want to focus on boosting investment in Canada, but he is expected to get a lot more questions about what he's willing to do to support Greenland. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Winnipeggers are lining up for the gold rush, wanting to buy and sell as prices keep on climbing. But one local jewelry business says the soaring prices also come with challenges. Paul Shirley co-owns Gold Hand Jewelry on Main Street. He says buying and selling gold is a roller coaster, and some customers are riding the high by selling or pawning it off, while others looking to buy are hesitant because of that hefty price tag.
It is a little tough. We're struggling every day to do our best to offer amazing deals, amazing products for our customers, but we don't know where it's going to go and how much it's going to fluctuate. It will go up, it will go down, but eventually it will be going steady up all the time.
Now, gold did set a new record in early trading today, nearly $4,700 U.S. an ounce. Shovels hit the ground on nearly 5,000 new homes in Winnipeg last year. The city says it is the second highest annual total in Winnipeg's history. New data from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation shows housing starts in this city went up by 12% in 2025. That's more than double the Canadian average of about 5%. The city says its aggressive policy and planning changes helped increase housing starts. But while the housing starts soared, fewer homes finished construction last year. Home completions dropped by more than 35% in 2025 compared to the year before. You can find more Manitoba news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
You are on CBC this morning, and it is, as you've been hearing in the news, a challenging start to the week. Abby's in to run down the forecast and those cold warnings just to reiterate what's happening out there.
You're stepping out this morning. It is cold outside. Widespread yellow level cold warning across board. We're talking about those Arctic air mass bringing life-threatening wind chills as low as minus 45 to the province this morning. And this brutal cold is going to be spanning from around Brochet to Dooley Lake in the northern part through the lakes, the Manitoba lakes down south, where we'll be seeing temperatures close to minus 40, and some areas around Whiteshell might get to see wind chill in the valleys of minus 41 also this morning. But for Winnipeg, also under that yellow warning, we're sitting at minus 23 at this time, with Sporting minus 26 at the airport. Partly cloudy skies in the city. We're looking at a mainly sunny day with some winds coming from the northwest later. We warm up to minus 19. However, the wind chill is not really going to make you feel the heat of the sun. It's going to be feeling as chilly as minus 41 this morning, meaning frostbite in minutes and exposed skin. So you need to take it easy as you make that transition from one bus to another. Across most of the regions in the south, we're seeing temperatures between minus 23 in Brandon. We're looking at minus 26 in Steinbach, minus 29 around the Sprague area. Morden is tracking minus 23, and we're seeing minus 25 in the Gimli area. All these regions will also be feeling those wind chills in those values of minus 40s this morning, so you need to take it easy. Up north, frostbite is still a thing. We're seeing wind chills also very on the high side there. Minus 20s and minus 27s we're seeing in the northern part of the province around to Dooley Lake and Churchill, and even towards Lynn Lake this morning. So take it easy. Winnipeg right now, it is minus 26. The airport is tracking minus 26. So take it easy out there.
All right, let's get into what's not running. Cancelled school buses for Lagimaudet, Saint-Jean-Baptiste, Saint-Agathe, Réal-Berard, Saint-Joaquin, Pointe-de-Chêne, and Gabriel-Croix. In addition, these two schools are closed today. École Aurel-Lemoine, that's in Saint Laurent, and École Saint-Georges. So those are all due to weather, obviously. And then we also have in the Prairie Rose School Division, a bus is cancelled, but school is on. However, Hatarian Colony school sites are closed. And these divisions have closed entirely today because of the hazardous conditions on the roads. Sunrise School Division, Interlake, Evergreen, Red River Valley, Lord Selkirk, and Lakeshore. So those are all closed. Okay, let's get one last look at what's happening in traffic briefly, and Sierra Sanders is in with that.
Good morning. I was actually just on the phone with Chris there, and he was calling to let me know that at Talbot and Gray, lights are flashing in all directions there. So Talbot and Gray, lights are flashing in all directions. If you are approaching that intersection, make sure you are treating it as a four-way. Stop and be patient with your fellow drivers. So Talbot and Gray, lights flashing in all directions. Thanks to Chris for that call. As well, we were hearing about lights out at Nairn in Kent. This was a little while ago now, but just in case, lights, I was reporting, got a call from Zach, lights were out at Nairn and Kent. They were not flashing, they were completely out. It sounded like crews were getting on the scene when I got that call, so I don't really know what things are looking like there. So if you are in that area, I'd love to hear from you about Nairn and Kent there. As well, we've seen a few things kind of clear up. So the stalled truck that we were seeing on southbound Kenniston just before the lights at Tuxedo, Jesse called to let us know that that is all gone. That truck has been cleared. As well, got a call from Brian about the lights are up and working at Route 90 in Grant. We earlier in the morning we're seeing traffic standard was knocked down, but crews got on that quite quickly, and it is back up and running. Just a reminder about some highways that are still closed: Highway 23 from Low Farm to Highway 75, and Highway 75 from Highway 14 to the U.S. borders. Those highways are still closed. It is icy out there, so be careful. And if you have any updates on any of the situations, whether you are here in the city or out on the highways, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
All right. Thanks very much, Sierra. Well, it is Monday, January 19th, and you may know that people call today Blue Monday, the third Monday in January. Today is supposed to be a day where you might be feeling those winter blues, in addition to those who often feel winter blues. There's a few reasons for that, why it's called one of the most depressing days of the year, but it's actually recognized its origins as a clever marketing strategy. To talk about Blue Monday, if you see it popping up and how it all began, David Soberman's with us. He's a professor of marketing with Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto. Good morning.
Good morning.
So for those that don't know, what is the origin of this day?
Well, the origin is that it was developed as a retail shopping event in the United Kingdom by a psychologist, and it was used by Sky Travel, which at the time was a company trying to sell trips down south to Spain and Portugal and places like that for British people who were dealing with the gray, cold facts of life that you have in a British wintertime. So it's not really very scientific. But they had a professor behind it, I think, to give it how would I say this, to give it a hint of credibility as being scientific, but it's not really scientific. It's basically just a retail event that was created based on the sentiment and the emotions that people feel this time of year.
It was created, though, a long time ago, and yet every year we still kind of lean into it. What made it a clever strategy?
Well, I think what made it a clever strategy is that there's a couple of things. One is the month of January, there's not really a lot going on in terms of events. We sort of have New Year's Day, and you have about 5 or 6 weeks before you get to Valentine's Day. So there was an opportunity to create a shopping event or let's say some sort of a marketing event. It was used at the time more for a travel sales of trips and travel to the south. But the other thing is that indeed it's the month when the days are very short. It's often the coldest month of the year. All of the excitement of the holiday is over. And on top of that, typically Monday is the day of the week when we feel the most depressed because we've been at home for the weekend, enjoying watching. I guess if you're in the UK, you'd have been watching soccer or football if you're here in North America. So there is some validity that it might in fact be the day that people feel the worst and maybe the most depressed. It's not scientific, but you put those two things together and you've got the basis for a retail event.
Yeah, it could be anecdotally shared. And ironically, a retail event that you could spend more money. And this is when people's holiday credit card statements come in too, which can add to people feeling not feeling great if they overspent. Exactly. I understand now, though, this is kind of caught on in a different way because we have holidays where people are encouraged to spend, like Valentine's Day and Halloween and all over the place with marketing. Are there decorations now for Blue Monday and such? I understand.
I've not heard of that, but obviously if you're going to be a retailer and you're going to be marketing an event, you're going to try to create paraphernalia that you would use in order to publicize the event and what you're doing. So this is the sort of thing that if you're going to do marketing, you're going to have things that you're doing in order to try to publicize it, even if it's something as a banner ad or a pop-up ad that we see digitally. Mm-hmm. All of these things have to be sort of illustrated. And Blue Monday, you can think of the ways that those could be illustrated. And I have seen a couple of things like that, but there doesn't seem to be a general rule as to how these things are done, in contrast to, let's say, Christmas, where you often see Christmas trees and sleighs and things like that.
Yeah. What about the consumer aspect of this? Like Black Friday prompted, Giving Tuesday and then Small Business Saturday right after it. Are we seeing any responses to Blue Monday by retailers or by local travel agents maybe to push back?
Listen, they're not going to push back. This is the sort of thing that they're either going to hop on the bandwagon or they're going to continue with business as usual. There's an opportunity for them to use this as a way to get some attention. And somebody might do a search online for Blue Monday. And if you have a Blue Monday event going on in your specific area and your specific category, your name will come up. So there's an opportunity here as opposed to something that you push back against. I think retailers, as a general rule, They need to create attention, create activity. And when you create attention and create activity, there's an opportunity for sales. And that's really what business is all about. So it's really a situation where it's not a situation of not pushing back. It's more of a situation, well, you've got too many other things to do and you can't basically spend the time developing the materials or the ideas that you would use to capitalize on Blue Monday.
Thanks very much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
No problem. It was my pleasure.
That is David Soberman, professor of marketing with the Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto, talking about Blue Monday. Of course, it also can highlight the very real problem that people have with seasonal affective disorder. And if you don't like winter, and that is what gets you legitimately not feeling great, you are going to probably not love today's forecast. It is partly cloudy, -23 right now. Our high is -19. But with wind chill, it's going to feel like -41. We do have cold warnings across the Lakes region. For the north, cold warnings look like -45. And then here for the south, we will mostly be feeling in all of our centers like -40. Bit of music from Bahamas. This is Ready for a New Thing. Bahamas and Ready for a New Thing on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on that app and on YouTube. Well, coming up after 8 o'clock on the show, has Manitoba's PC party become too progressive? A suspended member who may be kicked out thinks that's the case. We are going to hear, though, different points of view from 3 other conservatives today after 8 o'clock. So what does it mean to be a conservative voter in this province right now? We're going to have a really good look at that with a diversity of opinion coming up after 8. Right now, let's build on a story we heard in the news this morning, and a warning it does detail with the sexual abuse of a very young child. Police say that a 7-year-old Manitoba girl was sent explicit images by a stranger on Snapchat and coerced to send explicit pictures of herself back. Now, law enforcement and child protection advocates say this is becoming more common. Both report seeing more and more children under the age of 13 being lured online. And they want social media companies to do more to stop predators. Joining us to talk more about their investigation is CBC's Michelle Allen. She's an investigative reporter with our CBC Manitoba I-Team. Good morning.
Good morning.
So how did this happen?
What we know is based on production order documents from the RCMP that they filed to try and get access to the account data from Snapchat. They say that this 7-year-old girl was contacted somehow on Snapchat by an older man she didn't know, who coerced her into sending explicit pictures and video and had her send some back. Unfortunately, the man directed her to perform and take pictures of sexual acts. The girl's mother found out when she noticed the girl quickly put the phone away while she was using it, thought that was odd, and went to check the phone. That's where she found pictures of the man's genitals and messages sent between him and her daughter. So they obviously contacted police. We won't be sharing the contents of the messages, but I can say that they were hard to read.
How common is it then, just to reiterate this, to see victims that young?
We don't know, but what we're hearing is that it's becoming more common. The Canadian Centre for Child Protection says they used to only see a handful of luring reports involving victims under 13 each year. In 2025, they received over 200. The Winnipeg Police Internet Child Exploitation Unit also says they're seeing more and more really young victims. Detective Sergeant Mike Olson wasn't involved in this particular case, but says he's investigated many like it.
Under 10, it used to be a surprise. Now I would say it's more common and maybe not as shocking for what we're seeing come into us. But yes, 7, 8, 9, that's unfortunately not a shock anymore. Not just kids that are being offended against by adults or other persons in social media or chat rooms, but also kids that are putting their explicit material online on different platforms.
Now, speaking of platforms, don't Snapchat and other apps have safety features to stop this?
They do have some safety features, and we reached out to Snapchat to ask about this. They say they have special enhanced security features for teenagers using the app, and that people under 13 aren't supposed to be on there at all. But that's based on the age the user inputs, and it wouldn't stop a child from using an adult's account. Olson says lots of kids can easily bypass the security features on apps like this, and he wants to see companies do more to actually verify the ages to make sure kids aren't on apps that are unsafe for them.
In my opinion, I don't think they do enough. I think it's put there as maybe as a temporary fence to sort of stop kids from gaining access to social media accounts or creating their own accounts. I believe there's a lot of easy ways around it for kids if they want to. And so I think they could do more in that regard.
I know we always ask this, but it's a critical question. What can parents listening do to keep their kids safe?
One thing he mentioned that really stuck out to me is that it can happen to kids from any family. He says it is a risk of being online. He says a lot of the families he encounters are usually really shocked to hear this happen to their child because, they do what every parent does. They educate them of the dangers of being on the internet, of talking to strangers. He says the more unsupervised screen time they have, the higher the risk is.
The easy answer would be don't put devices in their hands. I realize that's not possible. But at least understand and know that these devices are hard for children to not use. They're addictive. At least that's my opinion. I would say if you are going to be giving your child a device, the supervision level has to be very high, the younger the age. But don't stop, just because they're 15, 16. Watch for signs of a child not wanting you to see what's on the device or going to use it in a spot where they have more privacy than they need. Don't allow them to use it in private or at night in their bedroom alone.
Is supervising your kid 100% of the time, though, that they're on a device doable or realistic for a lot of parents?
It is really hard, and that's something he acknowledged. Social media is so embedded in our lives and their lives too, and many parents, especially busy ones, do find it very challenging to do this. We spoke to Jacques Marcoux. He's the Director of Research and Analytics at the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. He says, of course, supervising your kids online is really important, but at the end of the day, it's very hard to prevent them from being exposed to inappropriate stuff without buy-in from the social media companies themselves.
Right now, the full responsibility is largely dumped on parents because there are no laws in Canada right now that mandate anything. The reality is that if companies had legal obligations to design things in ways that maybe protect children or in ways that are based off of consultation with parents or consultation with law enforcement or any number of things, it would go a long way. The government has obligations to impose standards onto platforms. Platforms should have obligations in how they design things. Parents have obligations to also teach their kids and protect their kids. School divisions, everyone has a role to play. But right now we tend to just talk about parents, kids, and sometimes schools.
Jacques Marcoux was actually on our show last week saying he'd have more on this. So I'm really curious, what did he recommend instead?
Well, he recommended a more systemic approach. He said that right now these social media companies, they make money off their users, right? And that includes kids that use the apps. So they don't really want to make any changes that could result in fewer people using it because that affects their bottom line. Marcoux says this is why we need laws regulating children's online safety, and we don't have those in Canada right now, really. The federal government tried twice to introduce something called the Online Harms Act, but both bills died in the lead up to the last two elections, and there were some criticisms of them for other reasons. Other countries like Australia and the United Kingdom do have laws that govern online safety. Here's what Marcoux had to say about them.
That would require that companies, for example, be subject to like a design code. So the UK has a child design code that requires that companies have certain design standards in place before they put digital apps into the hands of children. They also have to do risk assessments. They have to, when they roll out new products, they have to assess what are the risks, what are the known possible risks with this new design function, and how can we mitigate against this. We expect these things of other industries, of like transportation, air transport, food safety. We don't expect these same things of the tech industry. So an online safety regime in Canada would help address a lot of those things potentially, and it would hold companies accountable for their designs to make sure they don't facilitate harm or even amplify harm.
And we do have to remember that social media giants are not easy for governments to control. Snapchat is a $13 billion company. Meta, which owns Instagram and Facebook, is worth over $1 trillion. So Marcoux says that means they're very powerful forces and they can lobby.
Do you think that a lot of countries are struggling to keep these tech companies in line, no matter how big they are? They've actually grown so large that they can bully. We're seeing them bullying a lot of nation states. So yeah, it's a huge challenge for any government, let alone Canada.
Before you go, what happened to the 7-year-old girl?
Well, the RCMP did track down the man that they think exploited her. He's located in the United Kingdom, so they've sent the file over to the police in that jurisdiction, and it's in their hands now.
All right, Michelle, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Michelle Allen from CBC Manitoba's I-Team. She'll have more on the story tonight, by the way, on CBC News at 6, and you can also read about it on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba. While Michelle and I were talking here, Heather came in. We have changes to how your morning's going out there. So the following highway now reopened. Highway 23 from Low Farm to 75 is now reopened. However, 75 from Highway 14 to the U.S. border does remain closed. Still ahead on the show after 8 o'clock. What does it mean to be a Conservative voter in Manitoba right now? Does the party reflect who you are? We have 3 guests who are going to weigh in, 3 Conservatives, with everything from, quote, the party doesn't know where it sits ideologically, to, quote, as long as they focus on things like limiting tax increases and controlling spending, they'll keep my vote. So we're going to hear more from 3 Conservative voters. That is coming up after 8 o'clock on the show. Right now in Winnipeg, it is minus 23. Our high today, minus 19. Mainly sunny, but with wind chill, it's going to feel like minus 40. Cold warning across most of the south. Going to feel like minus 4 across most of the north. Let's get to Heather Wells and headlines.
Well, latest inflation figures are just out this morning, and they show the annual inflation rate jumped to 2.4% last month. That is up from 2.2% in November. The rising cost of food and airfare were 2 major factors behind the spike, offsetting a major drop in the price of gasoline, which is down by more than 13% year over year. So we'll hear more about those numbers coming up on World Report as well. And shovels hit the ground on nearly 5,000 new homes in Winnipeg last year. The city says it's the second highest annual total in Winnipeg's history. But while they're being started, are those homes being finished on time? Those stories and more coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
Check your school division because there are a number of them that are closed due to hazardous road conditions and some buses not running as well. Coming up to 8 on CBC. Stay with us.
Q. I'm Talia Schlenger in for Tom Power. Nat and Alex Wolff got really famous when they were just kids with the Naked Brothers Band. They'll tell you how they survived fame and remained friends and collaborators, and why on their new record they're trying to recapture the musical freedom they had when they were young.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
Life in Attawapiskat is undeniably hard, but that's where the Juno-nominated Cree musician Adrian Sutherland chooses to live and raise his family. Why Attawapiskat will always be home for Adrian? That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Britain's Prime Minister is urging calm discussions of U.S. threats to take over Greenland. Keir Starmer says the U.K. is determined to keep its strong relationship with the United States. But he says U.S. President Donald Trump's approach to protecting the Arctic is wrong.
That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong. It is not the right way to resolve differences within an alliance. Nor is it helpful to frame efforts to strengthen Greenland's security as a justification for economic pressure.
Starmer says his priority is to avoid a trade war with the U.S. He says it would not be in the best interest of the British people. Donald Trump has threatened to impose a 10% levy on goods from 8 European nations, including the UK. Trump says he will bump up those levies in the coming months if they oppose his attempt to acquire Greenland. We're learning more about Trump's plans for the Middle East and what he calls the Board of Peace. Some countries, including Canada, have been invited to join the board. They would assist in overseeing the next steps for Gaza, but participation could be expensive. For more, let's go to Nick Harper in Washington. Nick, the official member list still is not out. What do we know about how this board is being formed?
Well, Marcia, we're hearing that more than 60 countries have been invited, including Canada, the UK, Germany, Russia, India, Pakistan. The members would get a 3-year term free of charge, or if they pay $1 billion, they'd get permanent membership. We're also hearing that the US wants a broader remit for the board, essentially starting off with Gaza, but then expanding the scope to other conflicts as well. So far, only 2 countries have accepted their invitations, Hungary and Vietnam. The other countries are still considering, and many of them, it seems, remain cautious, perhaps even wary. Here's the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer speaking about it a little earlier.
Look, we're supportive of the measures that are being taken across the Middle East, particularly the ceasefire. I do think we need to press on to phase 2. We're talking to allies about the terms of the Board of Peace.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has been asked to join. What is he saying?
That's right. The Prime Minister is saying that he has agreed to the idea in principle. He says that he and President Trump spoke about it a few weeks ago. The Prime Minister says he wants to help, in particular to relieve the suffering in Gaza. But he has said that unrestricted aid flows into the enclave are going to be a precondition of Canada taking part. And the Prime Minister has also made it clear the details are still being worked out.
We haven't gone through all the details of the structure, how it's going to work, what financing is for, etc. And so we will work through those in the coming days.
And one question remains for world leaders. Where does the United Nations fit into all of this? Because if the Board of Peace is looking at other conflicts, not just Gaza, will that undermine the work of the UN?
Thank you so much, Nick.
You're welcome.
Nick Harper, reporting from Washington. At least 39 people have been killed in a high-speed train collision in Spain. Nearly 160 others are injured. The crash happened overnight. A train from Malaga to Madrid derailed and hit an oncoming train.
Había algunos que estaban muy bien y hay gente que estaba muy mal. Y los tenías delante y sabías que
This passenger says some people were hurt really bad. Others had to smash windows and climb out of them to escape. Spain's transport minister says it is unusual this incident happened on a flat, recently renovated track. A St. John's emergency doctor says new urgent care centres are not reducing wait times. Newfoundland and Labrador's government is hoping to bring some relief to hospital emergency departments. But as Mark Quinn reports, some say the problem is not the number of people showing up at ERs, but overcrowding inside the hospitals.
Health officials have been saying repeatedly that new urgent care centres will reduce wait times in emergency departments in Newfoundland and Labrador. It's something they've been saying since former Health Minister Tom Osborne spoke about them in 2024.
It will allow emergency rooms to focus on emergency care and the urgent care centres to focus on urgent care, moving people through the emergency department more expeditiously.
But St. John's emergency doctor Scott Wilson says that notion is flawed. He says the problem is overcrowding inside the hospital, a shortage of beds available for new patients, not patients looking for urgent care.
Overcrowding inside the emergency departments, patients who are admitted to hospital but remain in our space. That is the number 1, 2, and 3 reasons why people wait 10, 12, 24-hour waits in emergency rooms.
Wilson, a member of the Canadian Association of Emergency Physicians, is calling on authorities to work with the group to find solutions.
We've already had unfortunately, lots of cases in the media across the country of patients dying in waiting rooms in emergency departments. The numbers game is eventually going to catch up to us.
Newfoundland and Labrador's health authority didn't respond to CBC's requests for comment. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Inflation was up last month on a year-over-year basis. Statistics Canada's latest consumer price index shows inflation ticked up to 2.4% in December. That is after posting a 2.2% increase in November. As CBC senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong reports, the year-over-year acceleration is mainly being attributed to the temporary GST and HST break in 2024.
This tick up in inflation wasn't expected, but it's not exactly a shock either. The big driver here, of course, is the GST HST tax holiday last Christmas. That led to prices falling for that month in December of 2024. So when we compare December of 2025 without the tax holiday, prices obviously are up. And that included a broad range of items, from toys to restaurant bills, some grocery items like chips and candy. So there's not a ton to glean from the headline alone, but there are some interesting elements below the surface. Groceries were up yet again. Frozen beef was up like 16.8%. But as many of us noticed, gasoline was down. It fell 13.8% in December after a 7.8% decline in November. All told, you'd call this a pretty noisy report. So in those instances, we try to keep an eye on the Bank of Canada's preferred measures that try to strip out some of the volatility, and they are all either flat or declining. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
People in the U.S. are marking the 40th year of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom is continuing the tradition of free entry to national parks on this federal holiday, despite U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to end that.
MLK Day now been shifted to Trump Day. Again, what more evidence do we need on what the hell is going on in the United States of America? MLK Day in California, we are announcing today we're making 200 parks in California free on MLK Day.
Trump announced last year his plan to stop free entry to national parks on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Juneteenth, and National Public Lands Day in 2026. People with service dogs say they are still getting a rough ride when it comes to ride-sharing apps. Uber users say they're often being left at the curb. As Sophia Harris explains, that is despite anti-discrimination laws and a push to educate drivers.
Oh, there you go. It's not my dog. And it drove off.
Video shot by Salome Solomon last month in Ottawa shows a waiting Uber driver take off when the legally blind woman and her guide dog Zurich approach the car. Solomon says this happens a lot because Uber drivers frequently refuse to let Zurich in their car.
You don't want to take me in? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to send this video to Uber. Okay. Every rejection breaks you down. For me, it basically hits deep, like it's like a dagger to my heart.
In Canada, people with disabilities have a legal right to travel with a service animal. But several who rely on service dogs told CBC's Go Public some Uber drivers still refuse them.
Imagine the indignity of being told that your needs are not valid.
Disability advocate Jeff Preston says inaccessible transport is a systemic problem in Canada, and Uber needs to do better.
We need people to be driving who are open and understanding of their obligations.
Uber spokesperson Keith Narang says the company is working hard to combat the problem, but she acknowledges it still exists.
It's humiliating, it's painful, and it's completely unacceptable. The only acceptable ride refusal number is 0.
She encourages those left at the curb to notify Uber so they can weed out drivers who disobey the law. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Toronto.
Cat. Come here.
Sophia has more on this story at cbcnews.ca. It is on our main page. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, it is another challenging start in Manitoba this morning. Very similar to Friday. We've had some highway closures, school closures, blowing snow, and it's very cold. Welcome to January 19th, folks. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. You're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. This half hour on the show.
They've shot themselves in the foot. They've told their conservative base, we don't want you. I think they just told that 50% of their party to hit the road.
Suspended Progressive Conservative Patrick Allard says his party has swung so far left they're conservative in name only. We have 3 Manitoba Conservatives to weigh in this half hour with a diversity of opinion of what they think of the party. We're going to hear everything from, quote, the party doesn't know where it sits ideologically, to, quote, as long as they focus on things like limiting tax increases and controlling spending, they'll keep my vote. So we're going to hear what's going on with the base. Stay tuned. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells. She's in with other headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Manitobans were paying more for goods and services in December. In fact, more than anywhere else in the country. Stats Canada says inflation in this province jumped to 3.7% last month, the highest in Canada. It had been 3.3% in November. Inflation is up nationally as well, 2.4% last month. It had been 2.2% in November. Soaring gold prices are sending some Winnipeggers scrambling for that precious metal, lining up to buy and sell. But one local jewelry business says the soaring prices also come with challenges. That story and other news from Manitoba coming up at 8:30.
Okay, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, one last time, here's your school closures because you likely know already. But due to hazardous conditions, Sunrise School Division, Interlake, Evergreen, Red River Valley, Lord Selkirk, and Lakeshore are all closed. Prairie Rose School Division says the Hatarian Colony school sites are closed. That division, though, has school on, but it's canceled buses. Also, we have canceled buses in the DSFM in Lagimaudière, Saint-Jean-Baptiste, Saint-Agathe, Réal-Bérard, Saint-Joachim, Pointe-des-Chênes, and Gabriel-Roy. Closed schools in DSFM are École Aurel-Lemoine and École Saint-Georges. And this is all just due to what's going on with really icy conditions. We'll update what highways are closed and reopened in a moment. Right now with your actual temperatures. Here's Abby.
Widespread cold, Marcy, and of course we have warning as those brutal colds will be gripping the province this morning. We're talking about wind chill values as low as minus 45 this morning. Looking at conditions in the north around Tuduli Lake and Brochet, we're seeing dangerous cold in that part of the province. The wind chill values hitting minus 45, which puts everyone at immediate risk. And these brutal conditions are expected to last through the morning. So please take every precaution if you're heading outside. For the southern part of the province, also having that massive sweep of cold hitting Winnipeg and all the Manitoba lakes. We're talking about wind chills hitting close to minus 41 across the regions towards the White Shell this morning. Though it's going to start to ease up as you get close to the afternoon period, but a risk of frostbite in play this morning. Winnipeg minus 23 at the Forks, minus 26 at the airport, partly cloudy outside. The temperatures hovers between minus 28 and minus 22 all morning. We're going to see winds from the northwest. It's going to make the wind chill feel like minus 41 in the city. So take it easy if you're making that transition from one bus to another. It's minus 23 at the Forks right now.
Yeah, everyone's bundled up, and so they should be. Okay, let's get into what highways are closed and what's reopened now. Sierra?
Yeah, for sure. Looking at those highways, Marcy, we are seeing an opening. Highway 23 from Low Farm to Highway 75 is now open. Highway 75 from Highway 14 to the U.S. border is still closed. So that's Highway 23 from Low Farm to Highway 75. That highway is now open. We are still seeing Highway 75 from Highway 14 to the U.S. border closed. And taking a look at what's going on here in the city in Winnipeg, got a call from Chris. Talbot and Gray, the lights were flashing in all directions there. So Talbot and Gray, lights flashing in all directions. Make sure you are treating that intersection as a four-way stop and be patient with your fellow drivers there. As well, got a call from Jim on southbound Isabel between Cumberland and Notre Dame. There's a stalled car in the curb lane, which is causing some backup. So southbound Isabel between Cumberland and Notre Dame, there is a stalled car are in the curb lane. And just a reminder to folks, if you are heading out on the highways today, check out Manitoba 511 for updates on current conditions, any closures, and any incidents that are going on out there on the highways. Still a little bit of time left in the show, so give me a call if there's something getting in your way or something that's popped up. 204-788-3093.
Well, I'm going to repose the question. What does it mean to be a conservative in Manitoba right now? Does the party reflect who you are? We have three guests who are going to weigh in with a range of opinions. Now, this was prompted by the suspension of a party board member last week. Days after an ICE agent shot and killed a woman in Minneapolis, Patrick Allard posted, quote, "Do we have ICE in Manitoba? If so, are they hiring, asking for a friend?" End quote. PC leader Abby Khan said the comments were offensive and inappropriate, and Allard will not be able to run as a Tory candidate in the next election. The board will also decide whether or not to kick Allard out of the party for good. Patrick Allard says the PC should call themselves the Progressive Party instead.
They've shown that they're not willing to work with strong conservatives, and they want to cater to the center of the road, middle of the road people who tend to vote for the NDP. They've shot themselves in the foot. They've told their conservative base, we don't want you. I think they just told that 50% of their party to hit the road by putting Patrick Allard on a chopping block.
Allard accuses the PCs of accepting him only to gain the support of Manitobans who'd opposed COVID-19 lockdowns. Now, we're going to do a bit of a whirlwind trip through three conversations here. Our first conservative to weigh in lives east of Lac du Bonnet. Stéphane Bouderlique is in his 60s. He's a safety educator and an avid hunter there. Voted one of his top issues was gun rights. Hi there, Stéphane. Hi, Stéphane. Are you with us, I hope?
Yes, good morning.
Great, good morning. So let's start with, how do you feel about the action the PC party took to suspend Patrick Allard?
I think it was well-deserved. I think they should have done it immediately when that post was done. I don't believe that his comments were either, what represents me as a person, because they were very, they were too aggressive.
What about the sentiment he said that the party itself has become too progressive? How does that sit with you as a conservative?
No, I don't think so. I think they're just weeding out people that are showing aggressiveness and disingenuous on their comments. It makes it almost like and I don't want to really go too bad on this, but almost like we're the white supremacist party and all that. And that's not what we are. We are all for, limiting government and making sure that we reduce taxes and just for the people and being a voice for the people.
Are there areas, Stéphane, though, that you think of policy that do need more open discussion that maybe the Conservatives have shied away from discussing in this province?
I don't think so. I mean, when it comes to hunting and firearm rights and all that stuff, I think they have a really good platform on it. I think there should be more discussions with the Indigenous people on this. And, the treaty rights have to be respected. And I believe that my candidate out here does a good job on, conversing with those, the Aboriginal people as well.
And you've got Wayne Iwasco out there representing you in Lac du Bonnet, just so people know, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yep. When you think about values, because that word always comes up in these conversation, in any political conversation, what do you think about personally that you identify with as when you say, I'm conservative?
I do believe that he looks after the people here, and he is going for making sure that we have a voice in the fact of lowering taxes and reducing the spending and ensuring that people that are hardworking, get good value for their money when it does come to government expenditures.
How do you feel about the party ideology overall?
I think it's fine, but the thing is that, if you start labeling all the parties on what they want to go for, I think that just provides a lot of divisiveness in, people and in what they're wanting to do. So, in other words, putting people under one flag is not good. I think we should all just work together on this, and we are going to have differences of opinions, but I'm sure we can come to common ground.
How concerned are you about divisiveness among Conservatives in Manitoba then right now?
I think we're seeing that quite a bit going on right now, and people are, very quick to blame each other and not really figure out a solution. And I believe that, everybody's got to work together on this. Even if you do have a difference of opinion, I'm sure that we can still respect each other and come with kindness and making sure that we can come to a resolution that would be good for all.
Well, we're going to get to a difference of opinion next. Stefan, thank you very much for being with us as our first Conservative this morning.
Thank you very much, Marcy. Have a good morning.
You too. That's Stefan Butterleek. He's a Conservative voter, lives east of Lac de Bonnie. Now, my next guest takes us over to Stonewall. He's 46 years old. He's a general manager of Bulldog Demolition and Excavation. Eric Fleury has also supported the PC Party of Manitoba in the past, but has a different take on the party today and has some concerns. Good morning.
Good morning.
So how do you feel, Eric, about the action the PC Party took to suspend Patrick Allard?
Well, I don't think it shows solidarity in the party at all, and that we have a weak leader that won't stand up for people that would be strong candidates in NDP ridings.
What about the sentiment that the party itself, as Mr. Allard has said, has become too progressive?
Well, I'd agree with that. I've seen a media outlet last week where Avi was standing in front of a treatment center when we're a party of law and order, and from my perspective, drug addicts and drug dealers should be dealt with criminally. That's my position on that from many different experiences in my life, that's for sure.
And when you say to you that the PC Party of Manitoba is or should be a party of law and order, tell me more about when this party started to lose your support.
Well, I think it's I don't think that anybody would be surprised to look at the COVID era and see that the Conservatives, kowtowed to the rest of the country instead of standing up for what was right. With the judgment that was made last week in Ottawa that the Emergencies Act was illegal, we, as Conservatives here in Manitoba, stood up, as you know, and tried to make it clear that what was going on was wrong in Manitoba and across the country, of course. We were proven right again last week. We've been proven right time and time again. And I think that the leadership of the Conservative Party of Manitoba should be listening to the people that have been right instead of the people in this party that were wrong. And, we have to have some strong leadership that's going to, stand up and say what they believe is true and what is true by law and order, not out of opinion and people's, emotions. We have to take all of that out of the future. I mean,
and just so people are following the ball of what you're talking about, that is correct that the federal government was in the court was said first time around, that the Emergencies Act in the use of the convoy in Ottawa there wasn't justified. They appealed that. They lost that appeal. That's what happened late last week.
That's true. Yeah. We all left downtown here in Winnipeg because we were given an actual piece of paper by the City of Winnipeg Police saying if we don't leave, then they're going to confiscate all of our stuff, all of our equipment and such, so we left. Otherwise, we would have not left. We left under threat of arrest.
What values do you think about personally that you identify as being conservative? You've already alluded to law and order, so obviously that's something that you believe is very important. But what else do you believe that the party is not reflecting?
Well, you had a story in the last hour there stating, I think it had something to do with Instagram and pedophilia, which is a huge problem across, the world, never mind Manitoba, Canada, but and you alluded to the fact that it's the companies, but from conservative values is that we believe in family, church, of some sort, whatever church you want to believe in, that's your prerogative. Freedom of religion is the founding principle, and that if you raise your family, you're on top of your family, and you care about your family, then these types of situations are less likely to happen. I personally am all over my children with these things, and it's my job first to be a father, a protector, and a leader. So I think that's a conservative value.
Just last, Eric, you took to Facebook as well in writing about the PC Party of Manitoba, saying, quote, they don't want to talk about subjects like parental rights or COVID amnesty. You went on to say, quote, booting Ken Lee, Shelley Glover, Wally Dowdridge, Susan Ock, and now Patrick Allard, end quote. obviously, all of those things for you are top of mind then. Could this party win you back?
You attributed that quote to me, but it's not my quote. I did comment on that post.
Okay,
but that's
you
fine.
commented in
I
support.
do agree with that.
Yep.
I think that these are strong conservative voices that need to be represented in the party. And the fact is that we need leadership in this province. And these people showed strong leadership. And if you eliminate these people from your party, then you're eliminating a strong showing of conservatives that want somebody to stand up and for us. And this Conservative Party did not stand up for any of us in the last 5 years. It was evident, and we see it today. And Aubicon did not stand up for Patrick Allard. That could have been handled differently. As you know, Nahani Fontaine said something very ignorant after Charlie Kirk's death, and I don't think that Wab would have been punished for letting her go, but he stood beside her even though she was wrong. I think that's one of the things that I looked at in Wab and was like, hey man, you were wrong, but at least you stood by your person.
Thank you very much for weighing in, Eric. Appreciate having you with us.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Enjoy your day.
You too. That is Eric Fleury. He lives in Stonewall, 46, General Manager of Bulldog Demolition and Excavation, weighing in as a Conservative. 8:26 a.m. I mentioned it'll be a whirlwind tour. The last 4 minutes belong to my guest in studio who's been listening. Our final guest is a youth member of the PC Party Board, Gen Z student, also recently appointed, for disclosure here, a member of our CBC Manitoba Community Advisory Board moving forward. Kai Jassal is with us. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what do you think of Patrick Allard's initial Facebook post about ICE? How did that sit with you?
Yeah, so I know Patrick Allard personally because he was really interested in running for the PC Party nomination to be the candidate in St. John's. But I thought his comment was insensitive given the timing of what happened in the United States, and I also think it was unnecessary. I don't know why he was tweeting about issues going on in the U.S. when he should have been focused on local issues like that in Winnipeg. I thought he'd be more careful about what he wanted to say. You know, Patrick used to be an independent candidate. He ran against Aubicon as an independent in Fort White in 2022. And then in 2023, he ran in St. John's, his home constituency, as an independent. And joining the political party, he wanted to run as a progressive conservative. And I figured that he would have been more careful in what he says and what he posts so that he could have been vetted, just like is standard for all conservative parties.
So how careful do you have to be? Because if you're listening to what Eric said, he said he feels like they're just sort of discarding people in a way. So I guess the question is, you know, we heard one conservative just now, you're listening in saying that he did also feel that the comments, I mean, he didn't want anything to do with that, thought they were totally wrong, but he does feel the party reflects them. Eric feels like there's not a place for him. Where do you sit with this? Do you understand disgruntled members of the PC party?
Absolutely. So there's two parts to that, right? I joined the PC Party in 2021 to vote in the leadership race to replace Brian Pallister, and I voted for Shelley Glover in that race. I voted for the more conservative option in every leadership race I've participated in, and I want the party to be member-driven. That's why I got elected to the board. One of my close friends is now the president of the board. He's doing a lot of good work there. Board members, or not board members, but party members between now and the next election are going to get to vote on the party platform, vote for nomination candidates in ridings like Springfield Reshot, Steinbach, with longtime PC MLAs retiring. But I don't see this case in Patrick Allard as an ideological fight. I think this is about professionalism, right? I think there's a difference between being a party member and a board member. I think there's a difference when it comes to being professional about being insensitive, for one, the comment itself, but also trying to provoke the NDP on Facebook. I consider myself to be a real conservative, but there's no part of real conservatism that is like trying to start a Twitter war with the NDP online. For me, real conservatism is all about like major issues, community safety and protecting healthcare, building our economy. You know, I love Manitoba and I love living here. I want to stay here. And so my goal is to make Manitoba or keep it a great place to live. And that's what conservatism, in my mind, is all about.
So to move away as a last quick question in our last minute from the Allard comment, I want to ask you, I know that you've said you think the party, however, has a problem and doesn't know where it sits right now ideologically. What makes you say that?
Yeah, so some of our members, you know, were upset about Brian Pallister when he was premier on COVID, and I was certainly upset to a degree as well. But a lot of Manitobans think the party was too hard right when it came to the campaign in 2023, which I think was a mistake in a campaign. There were a lot of mistakes in that campaign. So there's a divide there, but there's going to be a rebuilding period for the party, and it will sort those things out. Like I said, we're going to have nomination contest. Members will vote on the platform. Those things will decide the direction of the party ideologically and its future.
Really good to hear the diversity of opinion this half hour. Thank you very much for being here in person as well, Kai.
Thank you.
That is Kai Giselle, who's a youth member of the PC Party Board, Gen Z student, also recently appointed, by the way, to Manitoba, CBC Manitoba's Community Advisory Board moving forward. If you want to weigh in, Conservatives, and you're listening, what do you think the future of the PC Party is in this province? 788-3205 will take calls. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It's minus 23 right now. We're going to have a high today of minus 19, but that bit of a northwest breeze is pushing the wind chill to minus 41 this morning in Winnipeg. And no surprise that southern Manitoba and parts of the north are feeling January this morning. Cold warnings in place as the wind chill freezes below minus 40 in the south, more like minus 45 in parts of the north. You are being warned to cover up all exposed skin as frostbite can develop within minutes. Well, that's today. Yesterday? Blowing snow, poor visibility. Semi-trucks and cars were parked along a stretch of the Trans-Canada outside Winnipeg after the highway closed in a winter storm. At least a dozen highways were closed across Manitoba yesterday. Truck driver Manpreet Singh was heading to Edmonton when he was forced to stop. He was stuck near Headingley for several hours. Singh says road closures are a regular hazard of the job, and drivers just need to take extra safety precautions in winter.
If you drive slowly and according to the condition, it's safe. If you make a rush, then it will be definitely hurting.
After about 10 hours, Highway 1 between Winnipeg and Sydney reopened. Right now, though, just one highway is still closed, Highway 75 from Highway 14 to the U.S. border. Inflation is on the rise. Stats Canada is out with the latest figures this morning. Inflation in Manitoba in December jumped to 3.7%. It had been at 3.3 in November. And at that 3.7, Manitoba's inflation is higher than anywhere else in Canada. Now, the national rate is also up 2.4% last month from 2.2 in November. The rising cost of food and air travel were two major factors behind this spike, offsetting a major drop in the price of gasoline. It is down by more than 13% year over year. Manitoba RCMP are investigating after a 7-year-old girl was coerced to send nude images to a man on Snapchat. Search warrant documents say the mother found nude images and video on a Snapchat account the girl was using and reported it to police. She also found explicit messages sent from the man to the girl in the app. In September, RCMP asked Snapchat to turn over the IP address and email address of the man. Jacques Marcoux is with the Centre for Child Protection. He says more kids under 13 are being targeted each year.
Connections creates more engagement. More engagement means more revenue. And so all those things creates a perfect storm where you have just more kids at a younger age spending more time in these platforms.
An RCMP spokesperson says they tracked the IP address to a man in the United Kingdom. It is sending the file to police in that jurisdiction. Snapchat says they are committed to stopping child exploitation from happening on their platform. Well, shovels hit the ground on nearly 5,000 new homes in Winnipeg last year. The city says that is the second highest annual total in Winnipeg's history. New data from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation shows housing starts in Winnipeg went up by 12% in 2025. That's more than double the Canadian average of about 5%. The city says its aggressive policy and planning changes helped to increase housing starts. But while starts soared, fewer homes finished construction last year. Home completions dropped by more than 35% in 2025 compared to the year before. Winnipeggers are lining up to buy and sell gold as prices keep climbing, fueling a gold rush. But one local jewelry business says the soaring prices also come with challenges. Paul Shirley co-owns Gold in Hand Jewelry on Main Street. He says buying and selling gold is a roller coaster, and some customers are riding the high by selling or pawning it off, while others looking to buy are hesitant because of that heavy price tag.
It is a little tough. We're struggling every day to do our best to offer amazing deals, amazing products for our customers, but we don't know where it's going to go and how much it's going to fluctuate. It will go up, it will go down, but eventually it will be going steady up all the time.
Gold set a new record in early trading today, nearly $4,700 US an ounce. You can find the latest news updated throughout your day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Heather Wells, thanks for the morning.
Thank you.
Also, thanks to Megan Ketchison and Alana Cole. Thanks to community reporter Shanley Vidal, our associate producers who worked in the program today, Issa Kixon and Zubina Ahmed. Our producers, Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson, and our Studio 15 crew, Darren Marash, Abby Adiyemi, and Sierra Sanders, who has a last look at traffic.
Hi, Marcy. Got a call from Kim a couple of minutes ago. She was driving on coming off the West Perimeter. There was a truck flipped on Canada Way, Provincial Trunk Highway 190. So that's kind of when you're just coming off the West Perimeter as you're heading towards the Sturgeon access there. She said it looks to have recently happened. People were helping the driver out. So that's a truck flipped on Canada Way just as you're coming off the West Perimeter there heading towards the Sturgeon access. I know it can get a little confusing there. A lot of merges, a lot of people going where they need to go. So be aware of that as well. Thank you to Jim for calling. Isabel, between Cumberland and Notre Dame, southbound, there was a stalled car in the curb lane. So that was southbound Isabel between Cumberland and Notre Dame, a stalled car in the curb lane. As well, Talbot and Gray, lights were flashing in all directions, but it's been a while since that, so I don't know what things are looking like there. And a reminder, Manitoba 511 is your place to check for highway situations, what it's looking like out there and current conditions. Thank you to everybody who called this morning. It was definitely a little bit of a fun-filled morning.
Busy Monday.
Busy Monday, exactly.
For sure. All right, Abby, take it away.
A brutally uniform freeze across the province, Mercy. That's what I'll tell you. We're looking at down south, we're seeing 22s to 25s, while up north, we're seeing close to 30 degrees. And if you add the wind chill, 38 to minus 45.
Here's my sound effect.
Exactly.
That's shaking the hot shots before you throw them in your mitts.
Take it easy.
Yeah, stay warm, Manitoba. Take care. Thanks for listening to Information Radio. On behalf of our team this morning, I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC's Information Radio. The Current, coming up next.